Hey, my name is Matt. This is the Essential Credentials, and this is the Instagram Collectors interview series. When I started doing this, wanted to do this, my goal was to get to 15 episodes, and today is that day. And what a better way to celebrate making it to 15 than having someone on who I look up to and admire as a content creator, someone who's got an amazing collection. A lot of people don't know that. And someone who helped me get a dream card into my collection. Many of you already know him, but we are going to get to know the collector in this person now, and that is Jeremy Lee. Jeremy, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good, Matt. Thank you so much for that nice intro and for inviting me on. I'm happy to be here with you tonight.
Definitely. Well, I have to give Mitch some credit because when I was coming up with my guest list for the next 5 episodes, he goes, Matt, you should ask Jeremy. And I go, well, I don't know, man. He's got a lot going on. I don't know if he'd be willing to come on here. He's like, no, you got to ask him. We want to see these cards, and the cards in your collection. And I'm really glad that you decided to come on here. How many times have you been a guest on a podcast like this, as opposed to the, hundreds that you've done yourself?
I keep a playlist on my YouTube channel. I call it Sports Cards Live Elsewhere. So it's when I've been on other people's videos. So this broadcast will make it into that
Wonderful.
As soon as it's up. I think I already put it in there. But that playlist is over 100 links in it. Now, it's not me being guest all the time. Sometimes it's other channels referring to me or showing me or something like that. But guests, I've probably been on 50 other shows, maybe I'm guessing 50, 60, 70, something like that.
Okay. So is it more fun hosting, or is it more fun being a guest and being the interviewee on a show?
Matt, they're both like, I love doing what I do on my shows, right. But I enjoy being a guest because it all the pressure's on you now. I can just sit back and answer the questions, have the discussion. Yeah. I don't need to worry about producing the show and all that. So I really do enjoy this, and I'm happy to be here with you. And it's a great lineup of guests that have preceded me on your interview series. So I'm glad to be among them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it definitely takes a little bit of pressure off, but it's more exciting too. I've always felt when you're being interviewed, because it kind of puts you in the spotlight as a collector. I think when we're hosting, we're never really trying to make it about us. You know what I mean? And that's great. That's how it should be. But you and I definitely are very passionate collectors, and I think a lot of people haven't had the chance to see that side of you as often. I know some do, especially those of you that have met you at the Expo and the National and all the other card shows you've been to. But I think having the chance for you to come on here and talk about your collection, which, boy, I got to see a little preview of it the other day, and man, I was shocked, because even I like, oh yeah, he's got these sets, and I've seen his top 20 pickups and all this, but I didn't know, to the extent of what you collect. So it's going to be really, really neat to hear you talk about that. But real quick, I wanted to jump in and just talk a little bit about your time as a host on your show. I think that's something that, having watched your progression over the last couple of years, I mean, we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary, right? I mean, it's pretty darn close to Sports Cards Live. Looking back on all those episodes, I mean, would you have ever dreamed of being 3 years into it and it being where it's at now?
Nope. No. It's a simple one-word answer. Not at all. I could never have foreseen Sports Cards Live becoming what it has, in my life, and, how it's been received by the hobby. Had no idea. Did not set out for this it wasn't my goal. It wasn't my vision. But like I have always said about it, just try to get better one week to the next, try to, continue to innovate, and you just never know what's going to happen. And that's been my attitude with it. So no, I had no idea.
And when you started off too, I mean, it probably was a little bit more simple in your mind at the time too, right? I mean, it's just amazing to see the people that you've been able to meet. I mean, when you first started it, was there a goal in mind of like the types of people that you wanted to meet, or has it kind of worked its way there as you've gained notoriety in the hobby over the last couple of years?
Yeah, like when I did my very episode 1 was April 16, 2020. It was just me. Here I am. Hello, YouTube. Right. Then episode 2, I brought on Carvin Chung as my guest. And at that point, I realized, well, I'm going to go live again the next time. Maybe I should bring someone else on. And I did. And then that really in those early weeks is how it turned into an interview, like a live and interactive interview show. And for the first year, I had to wrangle my guests. I had to, reach out to people, invite them on, and I was fortunate to have relationships with people in the industry. Like, I mean, the industry. When I started out, I had two different types of episodes. I called them, and I got away from this pretty early, but I called them industry insiders and collector showcase. So a collector or an industry insider, right? What are we going to have tonight? Is it going to be a collector like Matt or Jeremy? Is it going to be an industry insider like Dr. James Beckett or Dr. Brian Price or Chris Carlin or whomever? And so the first year it was really me going after guests, and now they pursue me for the most part. And I try not to sound like that's like that's a a big deal, but I get emails from people all the time, or messages, or saying, hey, we'd love to come on your show. Are you taking guests? That kind of thing. I still go after certain people. I still wrangle guests when I'm at events like the Mint Collective a couple of weeks ago. I do go out of my way to try to invite people on that I want to have on that maybe I haven't, but it's become a lot easier.
Well, kind of reflecting on that, like, what do you think it is about Sports Cards Live and your personality, the vibe of the show? What do you think it is about that has led people to ask you to come on? Because I think we could ask anybody that's in here watching, anybody that's a constant viewer of your show, like, what is it about the show that brings you joy, that makes you want to tune in? But through your own eyes, what do you think it is that people have attached themselves to or latched onto with your show that's got them to say, hey, we need to do something with Jeremy Lee?
Well, I think number one is that I've truly been immersed in this hobby now for 42 years. And so my love for the cards comes very naturally. I remember being in my early teenage years, sorting out cards on my red shag carpet bedroom floor. I can vividly see me sorting out the 84 O-Pee-Chee hockey cards and looking at that Steve Yzerman and remembering drafting him in my hockey pool in grade 8. Where we didn't really know what we were doing, but I did my first fantasy hockey pool in grade 8. So I think that and a lot of people already knew me from just Hobby Insider and being at the Expo and the National, and so I think the fact that I'm truly a lifelong collector and I'm passionate about the hobby helped establish maybe my credibility as somebody who kind of knows what they're talking about and just loves it. So, I when I started out, Matt, I learned about rapport. Rapport is really important in life. And I studied it because I wanted to know, how can I build rapport with my guests so that people will want to tune in? And so I took those lessons I learned and I used them. And I think that, my interview style is one that people enjoy. So I've been told. I also set out to, I have the sticky right there: educate, inspire, entertain. I look at that every day before I go live. Educate, inspire, entertain. Do it with authenticity and passion. That's kind of my motto. And I guess that's why. And I get good guests.
Right. Well, and guests that are, I think, through your positive energy, are able to really open up to all of us that are watching, because I know you've had a really wide variety of guests. Obviously, going into 3 years, you will have a lot of different people on, some recurring guests too, which are great. But that was the biggest thing that I took away. Like, I think the inspire part was big for me. When I came on, I watched some of your shows, but you can't really understand, the energy that someone can provide until you're being interviewed by them. And that was the biggest thing that I took. And so I think it's pretty easy to understand why people, enjoy your content and also enjoy coming on, because your passion for collecting is infectious, and you're not afraid to show that when you're, interviewing people. And so that was the biggest takeaway that I had, other than the fact that we got to talk for an hour and a half and we never needed to use our notes at all. I think that's it felt like a very natural conversation. I think for me too, doing this, I try to, get people to feel like we're just having a natural conversation. And of course, we have questions that we're going to try to get to, but it's very much a natural flow. I'm curious too, you mentioned, being at the shows and whatnot. What kind of interactions have you had at the shows in person with people, as far as your show on YouTube? I mean, that's got to be a really nice way for a new customer to come along and open up a line of communication, right? Before they, purchase something from you or just to talk. I feel like it's got to help with that as far as getting to meet a lot of new people.
Yeah, it really does. It's a lot of I've always loved going to shows and setting up as a vendor or just walking around. And now, since Sports Cards Live has, built its audience, when I'm at a show, again, doesn't matter if I'm walking around or set up at my booth, which is usually just at the expos. People come up to me and they tell me, I watch your show. I enjoy your I like your content. I love your content. And on, like, people are very friendly about it, and they and it's really nice. It's kind of neat for someone to come up and say, I just wanted to meet you or take a picture with you, or I want to, I just love that one show you did when you had this guy on or that girl on or whatever it is. Like,
right.
That's really cool. And I'm just a dude who collects cards that turned the camera and mic on one day, and here we are. Like, so it's flattering. It's gratifying. It's fuel. It keeps me wanting to do this, because it's that those responses are they're wonderful. Really. I mean, who wouldn't like that?
Right. Well, it definitely gives you motivation to keep on going, because I think as content creators, we always hit lulls. I think any of us can say that we've hit maybe a lull, and not just getting stuff up, but just really being enthused and passionate about it. I have to quote my good friend, Alan Chen, who co-hosts the Essential Credentials with me. He told me about a month ago, he goes, Matt, I don't know how you and Jeremy do it. And he just referenced you and I because he watches your show and we work together a lot, Alan and I. And he goes, I don't know how you guys have this constant energy and passion for the hobby all the time, because a lot of people, I feel, kind of ebbs and flows, So I guess that's my question to you. I know what I would say, but I'm curious, like, how are you able to keep that consistent, always being passionate about this hobby?
Well, I mean, and you're right when you say that there's lulls. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I would go to my day job, and there was a buddy of mine at work who was following along this journey with me. And I'd say to him, I'm just like kind of not feeling it right now, or I don't know if it's dying off, or if maybe the views were down for a couple of weeks or that kind of thing. But then I do an episode, and and it would just totally reinvigorate me. So there are going to be those emotional cycles in anything that you do consistently over the period of years, and you really just have to. It's like when, like, personal coaches or your gym coach will say, or your personal trainer will say, doesn't matter what mood you're in, you got to do your workout at least every whatever second. You just got to do it. So I just kept on doing it, and then there's some days where maybe I'm not in the best of moods, or maybe something happened in my real life that can impact my mood. Right. And I kind of can get nervous about, how am I going to be on the show tonight? I'm going to have an audience. I'm going to have a guest. I don't want to disappoint the guest for sure. Certainly don't want to disappoint the audience. But Matt, what happens is, as soon as I come down and sit in this chair, turn on the camera, turn on that light there, and hit go live, I forget about everything else, and I'm in the Sports Cards Live zone, and I'm just happy to be talking to a like-minded collector or hobbyist, and I managed to just get through it. And as consistency is so important when you're doing content if you want to maintain your audience. And I take a lot of pride in being consistent over 3 years. I mean, especially, it was easier during the pandemic because there was nothing else to do, including no traveling. And now I miss, I can't do it every single week, but I'm okay with that. I allow myself that because there are other things going on. But as long as you come back and get back in it and keep on, doing the episodes and having these discussions, I do love it. Like, I love every episode I do. Right.
I like what you said about, like, kind of you get fired up about, like, for the people that are coming on, or about what you guys are going to talk about. I find myself, after doing 15 of these, I find myself inspired about something after each episode, whether it's to look at downsizing because Kelvin talked about it for an hour, or whether it's looking at maybe doing a little side PC or starting another little set because Tim talks about how much he loves it. How often do you find yourself after an episode, I don't know, getting inspired to look at your collection a different way or try something new? Does that happen more often than not, or not?
Honestly, it doesn't happen so much on the show because the collectors I have on, like, also, as you know, because I took you through my collection the other day,
Yeah.
I collect a lot of different things. So,
Mm-hmm.
If I bring on a Jordan collector, I've got Jordan cards. If I bring on a vintage baseball collector, I've got vintage baseball cards. If I bring on a music, I got it. Like, so, but where I do find inspiration or discover new cards that I hadn't seen before, really Instagram, I think, does that the most for me. I'll see someone post up a card, I'll look at it, I'll be like, damn, that's a nice card. I wonder if there's one for this player, that player, this sport, that sport. And then I can find myself going down that rabbit hole. And so you have to be careful because this hobby can, it's, I don't know, if you love cards as much as we do and people watching, I mean, you got to be careful. Otherwise you can just spend all your money on cards, and that's not prudent. So,
and people can be really, really wonderful influences on my hobby endeavors, but you're right. You definitely have to check yourself, because I find myself, everybody saying, oh, you really need to go after this flurry. You never know when you're going to see another one. I'm like, dude, I've got to set boundaries, because if I don't, you're right, you end up completely losing yourself in it and making, decisions that you look back on and you're not very proud of. So I think once we get into the collection that you have, people will see that while you do collect a lot, you're also quite focused on what you do go after. You're not just willy-nilly buying whatever you want, which I think is pretty impressive, considering, all the different guests you've had on and all the different insight that you've got on these cards and prices and all this stuff. I mean, think about too, like how educated you are beyond where you were after all those years when you started the show. I mean, do you feel like it's really helped you understand the hobby to a whole new level after having so many guests on?
Yeah, well, for sure, because I'm asking all these questions and hearing all the answers all the time. Now, not every episode is about a collector and their collection. I do have episodes that are more, industry focused, other content creators. So when it started, it was passionate collectors and industry insiders. Now I say it's passionate collectors, industry insiders, and other content creators. But if you think about it, some people are in all three of those buckets. Some are in two, some are in one. So I've definitely learned a lot about the hobby. I've learned more about certain cards, certain eras, I would say. But what I've probably learned the most about are just the people in the hobby, in all of the businesses that are really running the hobby, or providing services and products to the hobby. I mean, I've interviewed people from basically every company in the hobby, maybe not everyone, but like probably 90% of the companies in the hobby I've had on the show. So I've learned a lot. And you talk about what have you learned, but I've also built a network now where I can reach out to people and find things out or ask questions or invite them back on. My network is extensive now. That's probably one of the cooler things, because some of those people become friends because they're just really down to earth people, and they become friends, and then you and then, not to go on a tangent here too much, but then you see them or their brands getting raked through the coals on social media, and you feel for them, because I have compassion, and they're friends, and I'm like, I don't want to see this guy or these guys and gals getting, and their brand being just completely insulted and complained upon. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it sometimes, I'm sure they do, but the human element, there's a very recent example of that, where I just feel bad for the people at that company who I consider friends, regardless of what happened. So you make friends. That's the best part of this, Matt.
Right. And that's a big thing that I take away from this too, is I really appreciate the connections that I've made in this hobby. And I think without the friendships and the connections that you make in this hobby, some might disagree with this opinion, but why else do it? You know what I mean? Like, think about when you were a kid and you got together with your friends and you traded and you looked at each other's cards and you high-fived each other when you pulled your favorite player. Like, at its core, that's what matters, not the fact that, haha, I have these amazing cards, look how much they're worth. I mean, that's great. Our collections are amazing. I love mine. I know you love yours. But I think at the end of the day, like, our friendships and these connections, that's what really matters, you know? So that's great that that's still a priority throughout everything that you've done. Last question I have, though, about, you know, the interviews and everything you've done with the show. You know, you're getting to that 400th episode and you're looking forward to 500 and beyond. Like, is there a goal that you have in mind, something you haven't tried, something that you really still want to do? Maybe somebody you want to interview that you haven't had on? Is there anything like that that sticks out that you'd like to, you know, everybody likes to set the bar high sometimes, you know, so I think it's good to do that, to dream big.
I mean, and some people have heard this story before. When I started out, I started realizing, oh, this is going to be an interview show. I put a bunch of names on yellow stickies on my wall. And when I had Gary Vee on back in January, that was the last original sticker or sticky. And, you know, some people might wonder, well, why? Well, you know, he has influence in this hobby and I wanted to have him on the show. Now I'm looking at a new round of some names on there, and there's some names I'm looking at right now. I don't need to have you on, maybe, or maybe, you know, for what, maybe I do, maybe I don't. But, you know, there really isn't anybody that I'm like, oh, I got to get. Maybe Lamim James. You know, Lamim James is someone that I'd like to have on the show. I think he'd be a good one. I haven't seen him on many shows, and that would be pretty cool. I'd like to get Card Porn on the show. I mean, like the unveiling, like the face behind the account, that'd be pretty cool if I could.
Pretty
do
that. Popular account,
yeah. But I mean, outside of goals, as in terms of guests to have on, as I do look, and I am starting to think about it because, you know, this Saturday is my 3-year anniversary episode.
That's
and
right.
I've got over 20 people coming through. We're doing a bunch of giveaways. I'm calling it like it's really going to be an opportunity for me to really thank the audience and thank guests that have inspired me, supported me, encouraged me, and then give a bunch of stuff away to the audience. I'm looking forward to that. But in doing that, I'm thinking about the next, you know, it's like 380 episodes or whatever it'll be. And I mean, I don't plan that far ahead, Matt. I never have. It's more like just do your best every time you do it, and good things will happen. That's kind of been my outlook the whole time. Just do the best you can do. I know that sounds so cliche, but I just try to do it as well as I can and see what comes of it. And opportunities my life has changed because of it completely. I mean, I'm no longer, I retired from my 25-year career. I joined tag grading. That opportunity would not have presented itself if I didn't start my what we call a podcast. So, but again, back to moving forward, I do have some, you know, I'm starting to think, you know, I'd like to continue to innovate with maybe different style shows. Again, my Saturday show is going to remain Sports Cards Live, this flagship show with the black background thumbnails. That's going to continue, but I'm, you know, I innovated and created this auction ending watch party sort of format. And now other people are doing it. And I don't know if I was the first one. I think I was, but I might not have been. And I feel like I innovated on that and it's been really cool. I've done probably 50 of those episodes. So I'd like to continue to innovate and find other ways to provide valuable content to audiences.
I'll look forward to seeing what's going to come of that. I know, especially with all the different people that you have at your fingertips to kind of join and add to those shows. It'll be awesome. I'm sure it will. And I want to get to a couple comments here before we get to the collection side of things. Kelvin showed up. Thank you, Kelvin, for making it in here. He's going to be on the roundtable. And here is Name. Said, hey guys, congrats on your 3 years of Sports Card Live, Jeremy.
Thank you, Name.
He definitely shows up to a lot of the episodes, and he's been to both of ours. So thank you.
He's been on mine a couple times, and been I've known Name for I don't know 10 or 15 years already. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to get the chance to meet him. He definitely has been a big supporter, and his collection is certainly really unique. And then you're going to have this guy on your show here coming up, Al. Nice to see you. When is that coming up again? In a couple of weeks or after I think it's after the expo, maybe. I'm trying to remember.
I had lunch with Al yesterday, and I said, "When are you coming on again?" And I think he said May 20th. So
okay,
still down the road, but let me see. Al is May 27th. May 27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see him on there. That's great. And of course, yes, just echoing what you said. Yeah, it really kept a lot of people going during the pandemic. I mean, that was probably the best time to start creating content, and it was neat to see as someone who started making content before the pandemic, see the explosion of sports card podcasts, and obviously all the money that was being traded around certainly, gathered more attention. But it was really impressive to see that you were able to get that going at that time. And then Jeff, he shows up to all of the interview series. So Jeff, thank you for coming in here. Yep, there's Al. See, I knew he'd know because he's a teacher like me and has like his notes are extensive. So I can't wait to see the notes he has when he comes on your show. He had pages for me. So that was great. Well, let's hop into your collection, Jeremy. I know that some people saw your unveiling of your top, was it 25 or 20 right before the end of the year?
I think it was top 22 of 2022, but of course I squeezed in 3 honorable mentions, I believe, and rounded it up to 25.
You got to do that as a collector, right? I remember I did the same type of thing, like my top 50 flurries in my collection, but I actually did like top 50 categories. And so there was like, 100 something cards sitting on the table when I was done. But, like you kind of talked a little bit about it from when you were at a young age, but like, how did this like deep passion for collecting get rooted? You know what I mean? Like what was it when you were growing up that made you decide like, this is going to be my life's passion, my life's hobby?
Well, the funny thing is, Matt, that I do have an answer for that, but you don't know it at the time. At least I didn't know it at the time that this was going to be my life's passion. So, I collected from a young age, like, before I was 10, right through the 80s, O-Pee-Chee hockey sets, Topps baseball sets, some basketball and football even. And then when I right out of high school, I went to Australia for a year on what was called the SWAP program, the Students Working Abroad program. And I went with a buddy of mine from high school. Like we graduated in June of 90. We were in Australia in September of 90. We're 18 years old. We're just young punks,
Okay.
But we did this. Our parents let us go. And I remember I found this like bookstore kind of game store, and they had Skybox basketball packs on the shelf. And I bought some, and I was so excited to see them. It was like, this was the closest thing to home or to my life back home were these cards. So maybe at that point, I kind of realized that no matter where I am in the world, cards are going to make me feel that warm and fuzzy feeling, of just being at home under your parents' roof where everything is nice and safe, maybe that's a part of it. Then, then the hobby blew up. The junk wax era was upon us, and we opened up a card shop. And so here I am, have a card shop while I'm just starting university at the age of 19 or 20 until I was 22 or so. We were open from 91 to 94. So that was I was immersed in it. Here I am, I have a store, and then it kind of went from there. But if I were to play, psychiatrist or psychoanalyst or whatever it is, and because I say it so often, Matt, we have this collector gene. In many people, it's dormant. And in a lot of people, it's thriving throughout our veins, like me and you and everybody who's watching right now. That gene is thriving.
All right.
And if I think about what is it about accumulating and collecting and hoarding and gathering? Like, I think a lot of it is really, the hunter and gatherer mentality that is innate in our species. But I know that's pretty deep maybe, but here's what I think. So I grew up going to, elementary school. So whatever, grades 1 through 6, with a lot of kids that had more means than I did. So trading hockey cards on the recess playground was a very common occurrence. And I was kind of behind. A lot of kids would get for their birthday or for the holidays or for their allowance, they'd get a whole box of O-Pee-Chee packs of hockey cards. So, whatever that was, 36 packs. I'd get
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 or 4. So I
Mhm.
was always kind of hungry for more and desired more. So if I'm being completely honest with myself, I might still be chasing those kids on the playground who had more means than I did at the
Yeah.
time. That's a real. Now, I don't listen. I'm in my 50s now. I don't really know that that's still the case,
Right.
but maybe it was the case that bridged me from then until, until I became an adult or until I had money to spend on cards or something like that. But if I'm
Right.
really going to analyze my psychology in being a collector, Matt, I kind of
Yeah.
think that it's rooted in being jealous of other kids that had more than I did. And maybe now I'm just trying to, I say maybe now, even though I don't know that, I don't necessarily think I am, but maybe there's still a trace of that in my motivation.
Well, it's just crazy. Sometimes you say things on your show, and I'm like, wow, I never thought of that before. Just to real quick go back, your last guest you had on, he collects Peyton Manning, and he had some other wrestling cards and whatnot. I'm so sorry, I forgot his name. What was his name again? Drake. Oh, Drake.
Yeah.
He got me to sell a card just today because he goes, once you have the value, you can let it. You've had it. If you get what you can for it, and you just move on. And I'm like, dang, I never thought of that. So. You're always trying to get the most out of us anyway. Anytime I'm watching your show, you say things or your guests say things that are insightful. And as you were saying that, I literally pictured back and living in Soldotna, Alaska. Anybody can look that up. Not many people know where that is. I had a kid who had a huge house, a huge yard. He and his brother had these amazing collections, Aaron and Jeff. They had these Jeter collections, and they would get boxes. And like you, I would get a pack or two, maybe 4 for Christmas. And there is something about chasing that feeling. It's not like I don't feel like with you either. I don't get this like, big headedness or, jealous of other collectors, but there's something to be said about having collections now that, if we knew we were going to have these as kids, we wouldn't have believed it. There's no way, like that. No, that's not going to happen. So I think that definitely helps me. And I bet it helps you too, right? Appreciate each and every card, just even a little bit more than those who maybe have been buying substantial cards since they were kids or when they were young adults, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, jealousy is not something that I want to be, or I try, or I really don't think I am jealous of things anymore. We all go through periods of being jealous of other things, but there comes a point when you just do what makes you happy. And if you do what makes you happy, there's really no reason to be jealous. And you'll hear the wealthiest people tell you that money doesn't bring them happiness. It actually can ruin a lot of people's happiness because now you don't know who to trust. You can't trust people when you're a billionaire or a filthy rich person, whatever it may be. So I'm certainly not like I can walk through a card and be, oh, I wish I could buy that card. I wish I had $5 million to spend here today because I easily could. But
Yeah.
I'm not jealous of people that do. I'm
Right.
happy. Hey, go if it makes you happy, great. But I think back to those playgrounds. I think back, it was always a race. Who could complete the set first? When you had the complete set, that was bragging rights on the playground. And so I was never the guy or the kid who had that set first.
Same.
And so I hesitate because I don't want to make it like I'm perfectly not jealous of anything anymore, because maybe I am, but I certainly don't look at other people's collections and feel like, oh, I wish I was you, or I wish I had those cards. Right. Yeah, I'd like to have a few more cards than I do. There's a few cards I'd love to own, but it's, whatever's within your means. And I have enough wonderful cards that make me very happy and proud. And I know that there's my collections, like, it's a top tier collection. So I really would be, I'd sound like a complete jerk if I were to say that I'm jealous of other people's collections at this point.
Right. What's interesting, when I finally decided to collect hockey again, coming back after doing it as a kid, the John Casey card, as you mentioned on your episode when you introduced me, but I spoke with various people about my approach. How can I go after these cards? What are the best means of doing that? Hobby Insider did come up, by the way. Al was one of the first back. You need to go there and ask people, But Aaron, who is Crease Collector on Instagram, a lot of people know who that is. It's super humble, generous, kind person. He goes, Matt, I only got one piece of advice for you because we were talking. And he goes, don't ever, if you can, compare your collection to anybody else's in a way that you're saying that's better than theirs, that's worse than theirs. I wish I had theirs. Because he goes, I'm telling you this because you should go check out Kendall Mullen's Marc-Andre Fleury collection. But before you do that, don't go on there and think, oh, I'm never going to have this. And his collection, if anybody's ever seen it or heard of it, he has literally every Marc-Andre Fleury card that's ever been made, nearly. I mean, we're talking probably, 90%? And for a player that has as many cards as he does, that's almost unheard of. So it was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. And I don't go to his website and go, oh, I wish I had these. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I'm all about celebrating others' collections as much, if not more, than what I've been able to put together. And I think that's allowed me to stay really humble in this hobby. And many of the people you have on have that same approach. I love it. Even Drake, he was talking about, I love what I have, but I don't, think about it being better than anybody else's. I just love what I have and I love what I'm doing and collecting. And that's what it's all about. So sounds like you kind of had that approach from early on. And then as you started working at this card shop, do you remember when, or at what point did you finally say, okay, now that I've got adult type money, I've worked my way into adulthood, I'm got steady income. Is there a moment where you thought to yourself, like, all right, now it's time to start adding some substantial cards, like a Gretzky rookie or something? Do you remember what that card was or when that decision happened?
Well, gosh. A big turning point for me would have been the first time I set up at a card show ever.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I believe that was in 2004, I believe. And that exposed me to a lot more cards, and it also exposed me to now selling cards. And it's like, okay, so you go through your personal collection. I didn't really have many traders back then. You go through your personal collection, or I went through my personal collection, and I kind of pulled out cards that I like. Drake, when Drake said, when you've got the value out of it, you can let it go. And I know that I know this is what you were meaning, but just to clarify for myself, what he means by that is, once you've received the enjoyment of owning the card, it's like a law of diminishing returns on some cards. Some, it's always at the highest level.
Yeah.
But if you've exhausted that enjoyment, maybe you can let that card go. Give someone else the opportunity to love that card. Take that money and buy something else. So I started kind of going through the process of going through my collection and pulling out cards that I feel I didn't need to own anymore. And then those go into the showcase. And then you sell them, you trade them away for new cards. So that was a turning point. But there was a couple cards that I spent, significant money on. It gets easier once you do it the first time also, right? So,
oh yeah.
A couple of the first ones I bought were in the 2000s. I bought my George Vezina rookie, the 1911 C55. And I bought that online on eBay, and it's in EX condition, which is a PSA 5. And I bought that one, and I put like thousands of dollars into it. So that was a big leap. And then I bought my Mickey Mantle rookie card, the 51 Bowman. And I bought that maybe a couple years later, and I bought it without doing I bought it very impulsively. Like I saw the auction with 3 minutes left. This was 2007, I think. So the only comps you could do were eBay completed listings.
Right.
Didn't even do that. Had no idea on the population. I just won the auction. I just made sure I won the auction. And that was the most I'd ever spent on a card. And then I looked at my roommate at the time, I go, oh my God. He's like, what'd you do? I go, I just bought a Mickey Mantle rookie card. He goes, what? And it was so exciting in the moment, but that might have been another sort of turning point where, but then what happened was I looked at what they were selling for. I realized I overpaid by like 20%. So it's kind of like, I wish I would have not been so impulsive. Right. Put the card away, kind of, put it into my collection, and didn't really follow its value for a while, like years. And then next thing I know, it doubled in value. And I'm like, okay, that's wonderful. And now it's way more than that even. So, yeah, that's as good as I can get on that question as to like, right. Is there a moment? But those are a couple that come to mind.
Those are pretty significant too. I think most collectors, we can look back to like a card that it really, you finally really went for, that is would have been outside your comfort zone at the beginning, but now you're like, oh, okay. Like you said, you exercise that muscle of spending $100 for the first time on a card. And, I've only spent 1,000 once on a card. I feel very fortunate for that, but that was a really not uncomfortable, but it was kind of an unnerving thing to do because I was stepping way outside of my realm and being speculative on a value in essence. But I've always said this, I feel like it all balances out. You overpay for about 5 or 10 cards over the course of a year, but you also get really good prices on the other 5 and 10, so I don't think any of us at this point, with as much as we know about the hobby, would say that we vastly overpaid for a card. And if we did, it would have been like the ultimate dream card, so yeah, that's always good to hear. Now you mentioned those 2 cards, but one of the most impressive things that I saw when I was looking through your collection with you is the sets that you started to put together or have put together completely. I mean, it's really impressive. And again, I just didn't realize it, I guess, that you had been working on these for so long, being that we just met not too long ago. But talk a little bit about those sets, like maybe 2 or 3 of your favorites, and maybe if you remember kind of what made you want to start going after them.
Yeah, and we had the discussion. I raised the concept of a seed card. You get that first card that then it's like it plants the seed, and then the flower grows, and then it turns into a big tree, and it just becomes something out of control. That often has happened to me where I'd go into the LCS and buy a box of cards. It happened to me in 2005, 6, 6, 7, 8. So the 7-8 season, maybe it was the middle one, 6-7. Upper Deck put out the rookie update series, rookie something or other. There were the cards were the rookie inspirations, the dual autos of like a veteran and a rookie. And you had the Ovechkin and Kovalchuk card, you had the Lundqvist and Belfour or whoever. And I opened up a box of that at Maple Leaf Sports here in Calgary, and I pulled out one of those dual autographs. Well, that caused me to go complete the whole set that year and do the other 2 years of sets as well.
Wow.
So, like that's kind of how it starts for me. Or I'll be at a card show and I'll see a card in a showcase and I'll be like, oh, that's such a nice card. And then, you kind of you do your research, you see what the what the checklist looks like. And if it's a checklist that you are willing to get behind, and then maybe you buy that card. Now you're on a new project. That's happened to me as well. Or you buy a collection. Like, I've been doing shows now for 17 years or so, 18 years maybe. So I buy collections, and you buy a collection. And one of the most fun parts about buying a collection, especially a big one, is deciding what you're keeping for yourself. And it's a moment of discovery too, oftentimes, where there might be a card that you just love, and you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to collect, maybe the checklist has 50 cards. I'm going to go for 10 of them, the 10 players I want. I don't believe in being a slave to a checklist. If there's a set of, and I have been in the past and I still am, but it's not like I pick and choose my spots very carefully on that. I have to love the card design to want to go for the whole set. I do love the idea of, you like the looks of a card, build your own checklist. If there's 150 cards in the set, maybe you only go for 30 of them, and then you're done, complete. I don't need to get 100. If there's 150 cards, I don't need 30 I love and 120 that I just need because they're on the checklist of players that I don't care about. I used to do that. I've gotten now into the habit of going through some of those sets that I built over the years and literally selling off or trading away breaking up those sets, but keeping some of them, because I don't need a bunch of cards of David Perron. He's just there's no nostalgia when it comes to him. So why have the cards? That said, I have a David Perron card in my masterpieces in this set here that I've showed you and told you about. So this set here, these cards, this is a 153 card set. I've been working on it since 2015, and the first card I got from it, I think I got at the expo in a collection or a trade. I thought, well, that's a pretty card. I'll be able to find a buyer for that or a collection for that. And I ended up keeping it, or maybe getting a few more. Now I got 5 or 6 of them. And then you got 12 of them. It's like, okay, let's do the set. So this is an exception to my rule. Like, there are players in here that I don't need to have cards of, but most of the set is pretty awesome, and it's a very good checklist. So,
Right.
And I'm 12 away now out of 153.
Well, and I'm very glad that there's a certain goaltender that you have for that set too, because it's that was the one thing that he's in there like, how good, because that's really interesting. You mentioned that too about just finding the ones that you like from a set, and as you mentioned that, I immediately thought of our connection with a card that you let go from a set. And I'm guessing it was the same type of thing with the buried treasures, right? I mean, either you just wanted the guys that you really like, or you're ready to move on to something else. But there is a card that you showed me right before we went live that you could say this is a seed card for building that set. And you got any maybe a little story behind that card real quick, because it's a spectacular.
Yeah. Card. So now I don't expect to complete the set because they're all one of ones and they made them for like 3 years. So I never expected to get them all. I know I won't, but that's okay. But I do chase them. I pick them up when I can. And so it was at the Expo, probably 2009. And these are in the game cards, a Dr. Brian Price product. And for the very first time in the hobby, there were these patch cards that took up the whole card pretty much, except for a border. And I was fascinated by them. And they were all one-of-ones. And the cool thing was that at the Toronto Expo, there was a redemption program. So people were opening up packs and packs. Now, this was from the 9th year of Ultimate Memorabilia. In the game, Ultimate Memorabilia. And up until, the first 5 years, I think, were licensed. And then they lost the license, so they became unlicensed. And from Ultimate Memorabilia 9, that's when he first included these jumbo emblem cards. And my booth at Expo was close to the corporate area, so people were pulling these spectacular cards, and I would get to see them as they were walking away. And I started picking them up. But the first one I got, people knew that I'm a Teemu Selanne fan. And someone brought me the Teemu Selanne card from that set and said, "Hey, I heard you might be interested in this," which is awesome in and of itself, that people come to you when they come and say, "I heard you might be interested." Definitely. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in that card." And it's this card right here. Still love it. Teemu Selanne, this is 2008-9 in the game Ultimate Memorabilia 9th edition. It's called an Ultimate Emblem, and it's a one-of-one. And so this was the first card I ever picked up that was of this insert set, I guess. And I've now managed to assemble, I think I have 90 cards like this over 3 different years that they included them. And then a couple of redemption cards as well that I've added that look the same, that are just, they weren't packed, they were redemption pulled. But, even when the second year came around to these, and I remember like Kurt, Gabby Guy, or Mike, Holy Goalie, these guys were pulling these cards in the game booth and bringing them right to me. And I was just like, I want them. I want it. Like, you have me where you want me, sort of thing,
Right.
And so like these are all cards, and I have overflow. This is all that fits in this one graded card box, but each of these are one of those cards. They're all like, just pick a random one out here.
Yeah, go for
it. Ilya Kovalchuk from the Atlanta Thrashers. I mean, that's just a really cool card. Pick another one at random. Ty Domi, Toronto Maple Leafs card. Like, what's this? Oh, this one I had to chase hard for. Mike Modano. Like, look at that. Like, these predated the Prime Colors from Panini Prime Colors. They predated Mega Patches from Upper Deck Prime Collection. Chili Chow, who a lot of people know, Tim Heacock goes by Chili Chow online, and he's in many Facebook groups now. He'll tell you that he told me one year at Expo, I dedicated a showcase just to these cards, fit in at 30 of them or something. And people just came and stared at that showcase because no one had seen them like that before. And I had a good hoard going. Tim Chili Chow, he's now got a huge collection of cards like this. And he says that it was all from that first time he saw my showcase at the Expo. So,
Right.
these I'm in my mind, this is the best of the in the game in the history of in the game.
Hmm.
It's like the best cards Brian Price ever put out, in my opinion, and they represent like the best pieces of all those game worn jerseys that came out of his collection. So, kind of feel like he did all the work over all the years, and I got all the good stuff. But I've
Well, and
worked hard at it.
definitely. Well, first thing, just to comment, like to be able to be sitting there and see them get pulled and then be able to do a deal for some of them right afterwards. I mean, that's like a dream for any collector. Like, imagine sitting there and Marc-Andre Fleury, like the card you're after from that set gets, hey. I'm really curious, just a little quick side question. You've been a dealer for a long time. You've established some really good relationships in your rapport and how you sell and purchase cards from people. What is that process like for somebody who's been to a few shows? And I love talking to some of the dealers. That's some of the best parts of going to the show is just like sitting down or standing there and talking with somebody and hearing, how they got there, why they're in the hobby. But how do you go about the negotiating process? Getting like with that Solani card, did you already have a price in mind? Did you just spend some time talking to him before you even offered a price? Like, how did that go down?
I do not even remember. I don't remember the acquisition of that particular cards, but I can still answer the question in respect of other deals. Yeah, I mean, when people know you want a card, they have all the power. Even when Kurt came to me, when the second year of these cards first started, and he Brian Price released them at the expo, and Kurt Johnson, Gabby guy, he managed to pull two of them. And I found one of them. I'm trying to find the other one that he pulled. And, he came to me and said, well, you want them or what, sort of thing. And I was like, yeah, I certainly do. And, it's like, what do you want for them? And you so these were the two. Now, people might not recognize these because these are from the minor league, the juniors. But that's Shea Weber and Rick Nash and London Knights and the Kelowna, whatever they're called. I can't think of it right now. So, but that's the eye. That's the eye of the what's the monster called that's supposed to be in Lake Okanagan, and that's the helmet of the London Knights. So Kurt had these, and he came to my booth, and I'm like, those are so cool. I've never seen patches like that. Like, what do you want for them? And he says a price. And I'm like, okay. So let's say, I don't remember. Let's say he said, I want 600 for the pair. I'm like, all right, Kurt, but can you do 5? Sort of thing. And I don't remember what he said, what I paid for them. And I don't even have a record of it. I've had these so long, but it's just, as far as how does the negotiation go? Really, when they have you where they want you, you kind of got to pay what they want. Otherwise, you risk not getting the card. And so, yeah, I kind of, you just gotta take it when you can get it.
Well, and I wonder too what that's like from the other side. When let's say me not knowing you come up and there's the Marc-Andre Fleury buried treasure, and you can just see it in my eye, like Jeremy, I've been looking for this card for 3 years. I can't believe it. Like right there, you have me, right? But you've also been on the other end of that. So I think it's really nice to have that perspective, because you never want to go up to a booth and feel like you're getting fleeced on anything. I mean, sometimes I'm sure you get people who come up and you know them really well, and so there's not any of that weird jostling that there's, somebody's messing with somebody else. But has it really helped with, being able to kind of work and understand, like from the other side of things?
I mean, and I just want the Fleury buried treasures you bought for me was a very unique occurrence, because I didn't put that set together. I bought that set, the whole thing, in one big shebang. Cost me a lot of money, and I bought it because I wanted to keep a few of the cards, but the rest of them I want to sell, and I want to recover the money I put into them. So I kind of have like bottom line prices on those. Doesn't matter how much I like you, how much you want the card. There's just that sort of limit to it. But yeah, when people come to my booth, like if I can tell that they are going to love a card, depending on the card, if I can, I'm going to give them a better deal than I would someone else who, may just want to trade, put it in their trader box or sell it or whatever. Like, yeah, because I am a collector, I'm going to want, and I also want to have goodwill out there too. So, I mean, yeah, if you, I'm not saying come and grind me, but at the same time, yeah, some cards I won't even sell to some people. Like, it's just, no, you're not walking away with that card, but someone else might, because I can just tell how much they're going to love it or what the card means to me. But, that doesn't happen all the time. But yeah, you want to be fair with people, and you want to build I don't want to scare people away. I learned a lesson early where I did have a card that somebody needed, and I'm not proud of the way that I handled that deal. And this is going back to probably 2005 or 6, back in there somewhere. And I wish I wouldn't have, made him pay me whatever it was and given him a better deal. But, live and learn and do better next time. And I'm going to forgive myself for that. And just, I think I've paid it back to other people along the way now. So, but yeah, you want to get cards in the right collections for sure.
Definitely. Well, and we all have to make those mistakes in the hobby to learn our lessons, whether you lose an auction because you didn't do something, or you overpay, or and it could be anything. But like, each time those happen, though, those are the moments where you can make it right and learn from it, and especially as a dealer, you deal with, I don't know how many cards you've sold over the many, many years, thousands, maybe hundreds, thousands, but thousands. You're going to have moments. But it's great that you've been able to see that, and you still remember that from that long ago. I'm sure there's plenty of dealers, and I've met a few of them that don't even care. They're like, whatever, I got what I could out of that, the most I could. Is that something a philosophy you've always had, though, now as a dealer? Like, if you meet the right person,
you said that it's that you even remember it. Well, I remember it because it had such an impact on me. I was so not comfortable with my behavior, my approach to the transaction, that I've never forgot it. I remember how I felt at the time, and I remember his response to me being like, "That's the price," sort of position. And I remember kind of feeling bad for the guy at the time, but I also remember that I wanted to get the money for the card. And if I could undo that or do it again, I would be way more lenient with that particular person at that time. I can't go back in time and change that. And I don't even know who it was anymore. So I can't go give him a few $100 back, but I can adjust my behavior moving forward. And I've done that. So I learned a lesson, and I learned it by being unhappy with my own behavior and turning around and looking at myself and saying, do better, be better next time.
Right.
So,
well, that's great. I mean, so many of us need to have that approach in the hobby, because we're going to have moments, where we need to learn from it, and I think just holding ourselves accountable and being good people at the end of the day is all that matters. And I love that with dealers. I love when you can walk up and they're just like friendly people. Who knows how many cards they've sold or how much money they've made? Doesn't matter. Those are the best people to meet at those shows. Few comments that have happened while we've just been going. I didn't want to break up the flow, but baseball card curmudgeon, he shows up to your shows as well. Great to have him here. He said, yep, collector like you guys. Always tell my kids, don't become a collector. Have you told your kids the same thing, or are you just going to let it figure it out for themselves?
I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to encourage them because it's been so good in my life. And it also, it's a hobby, and you need a hobby in life. And I'm not saying you have to, collecting doesn't have to be the hobby, but I like it, and it's been good for me. So, and if my kids want to be collectors, I mean, they've got a pretty good collection going already. They don't even know about. So, so no, I'm going to support. I made me and my wife talked about it. Whatever our kids want to do, we're going to support it, even if it's something that we don't think is going to lead to success, because they'll figure it out. I'm going to support whatever they want to do. And if it's not collecting, that's fine.
Well, just think about this. If we listened to a bunch of adults and their advice when we were younger about collecting, they would be like, well, where's that going to lead you? You know, and you wouldn't have your podcast. I wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't have our collections. So, yeah, I'm really happy to hear that approach. That's the same thing I say to my students. I know they're young and they're only in third grade, but some of them have passions now about wanting to be content creators of gaming, or they want to go do this sport or do this art. I'm like, do it. Go for it.
Do it.
If you got the passion for it, go for it. Al's got a great comment here. It's a celebration, not a competition. 100%. Yep.
That's a really, that's all, Al. I might steal that. I got to ask both your permission. I'll credit you, but that's one of the best quotes I've seen in a long time. I love that quote, Al. I'm going to write that down if I may.
Yeah, go for it. That's pretty substantial right there. And I have to say that I hope everybody has moments like this. I know that not everybody has cards on display. Jeremy and I spent a little bit of time talking about his beautiful display behind him and all the great things that he's got there. Has this happened to you, Jeremy, where you walk into that room and you sit down, you talk about getting in that zone, right, for a show? But the other day I got up and I've got my 2 curio cabinets in my bedroom there, and I stood up and I just stopped. I was getting ready for work, getting all my school clothes on, and I just stopped. I just looked at the Flurry display and I went, dang it, that's really nice. Like I think we have to have those moments of celebration of ourselves too, where we're like, man, look at, like you said, from being a kid, and you got all these kids, all these amazing collections, and you've got, some base cards. I'm just like, holy moly, I'm really, really happy with this. Do you have those moments?
Oh yeah. I mean, so I finally learned after so many years that, and I learned it doing my top 22 of 2022 cards. So
Right.
like, what cards did I get this year? First, never mind picking them. You got to identify the cards that you just got this year. So you go through your eBay purchases, you go through your ComC purchases, you go through your pictures, you go through go through my PWCC account. I'm looking to see what I bought this year. So this year in 2023, I'm actually, all my pickups this year are going into a special pile. I'm not mixing them into where they would eventually go to live with my other cards. Okay. I'll do that at the end of the year. So what I can do, one of the things I can do is I can go look at what cards I've got so far this year in the first 3.5 months. So there's that. The other thing is that my collection is very organized. I keep my stuff. Managing my collection, managing your collection is one of the pillars of being a collector. Yes. It's one of the, like, you don't just buy a card. There's the whole process of buying it, receiving it, processing it into your collection, putting it where it goes, and then having fun with it, like finding other cards to put it with, laying them out, taking a picture, maybe doing an Instagram post, and just enjoying them. So I regularly go through my collection. And another thing, because I also regularly go through my collection to try and pick out cards that I'm done with. I've had my enjoyment. I'm ready to move them. In doing that, that's another procedure or process of enjoying your cards and like being like, okay, no, I am not selling this card. This card is staying with me. By the way, this one I just picked out randomly was on eBay for like 6 or 7. It's a Taylor Hall. It's a commemorative patch. It was on eBay for, I don't know, probably over 10 years. Finally, the guy put it to auction. He had it on for like $400 for so many years. Put it up at auction. I think I won for like $60 or something like that. Patience is another good lesson.
Yes.
Be patient.
Yes. No, that's fantastic. I love the organization. I think that will be the biggest thing. As we've been talking, I scan all my things in and I put them in per month of when I get them. So that's going to really help me when we do the end of the year. But I know that everything I've scanned in already can be better organized. And your boxes, seeing your boxes, just seeing them all like, I was like, ooh, like that. All right, I gotta find a way to take my boxes to the next level. So that's great. This was from earlier. I'm sure this is, referring to all those mega patches that you showed. But he said it was the Rockets and the Eye of the Ogopogo.
Yeah, thank you, Name. I know of. Listen. My mother lived in Kelowna for like 20 years or so, and I used to go there. So I know the Kelowna Rockets, I know the Ogopogo, but of course the odd brain fart.
And then Al does have a comment about tag. And I will say, Al, anybody else that's got any questions for Jeremy about tag or wondering, we're going to get to that toward the end. I do have a question in there, and I'll give you a chance to talk about that because I know that's been a really fun endeavor for you over the last little bit here. And who is it? Was it Vaulted Cards, I believe, that was doing a reveal of one card per day opening up? That was really cool to see. And I had a great discussion with him about some different things. So
yeah, and just today, a new account followed me. Had followed two people, me and Tag Rating, and put up a couple two posts now of tag subs. They look beautiful. Kale McCarr, Future Watch Auto. He's called Penalty Shot Sports Cards, I think was the name of the account. Like brand new account today. And of course, I followed him back. I was his first follower, which was kind of neat.
Sweet. Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to hearing more about that. Now we talked about your sets, which there are so many more that you have that are impressive. So I think we could spend hours on those if we wanted. But as you were showing me some of your collection, I was actually, you mentioned the mantle. So people know that you're not just exclusive to hockey, although that's your sweet spot. But you had some pretty impressive basketball, baseball, and even some football cards too. Is that rooted from your childhood or as you moved on with your collection? Was there a point that you decided there's some other cool cards in these other sports? I think I'm going to do that because I felt like it was a PWCC thing because many of them are graded. So what was it that made you decide to head down that road?
Well, in the 80s, I was collecting all four sports when I could find them at the corner store. I would buy 80, 81 basketball packs. I used to go with my childhood friend. We'd take the bus and go downtown Winnipeg to Book Fair, which was like a used book and comic store. And there was a small dingy card shop in the back corner called Abdi Cards. And I would go in there and I would buy team sets of the 86 Fleer baseball. That's how I built that set. One team at a time. And I'd have to sneak them back into the house when I got home. Couldn't let my mother know I was spending money on these worthless baseball cards. But I remember the Roger Clemens from that set with his face in the middle of the big red border. And I loved those cards so much. I don't own any of them right now, but I'm tempted to get one just for that nostalgia. So I've been collecting all four major sports since the 80s. But I would say that I've been collecting Hall of Fame rookie cards, all sports, for at least since 2000, the year 2000. And in 2006 through 2011 or so, I had a very good job, let's say. And so I really built up my collection in those years where I could buy cards for what was a lot of money to me at the time and afford it. So that was a turning point, was that period of time. And then in 2017 or 18, I think I know how, I got into collecting like 90s inserts of Michael Jordan. And I think the reason I got into that, and I have to think about it harder, was I started seeking out content, and I found the House of Jordans podcast. Those, Chris McGill and his fiance Christina and their cousin, whose name I don't remember now, who's not involved with them anymore. But that might have got me. No, that didn't get me into it because I remember reaching out to Chris and saying, "Oh, he was one night on one episode they were talking about how all of a sudden there's this new eBay bidder code that they'd never seen before that snapped up a bunch of cards in an auction." And so and they're like, "Who is this mysterious bidder?"
Yeah.
So I reached out and said, "Hey, that was me. I bought those cards that day." But again, I don't remember exactly why I started buying these. But anyway, I did, and it really opened me up to exploring the 90s. Your Essential Credentials podcast with Al and the other guys.
And Greg, yeah.
Yeah. Talking about 90s inserts. I mean, I was glued to those episodes. That feels like it's a few years ago now.
It was, yeah. We'll be back in 2018, yeah.
Yeah. That was influential on me, Matt, was being exposed to those. So I started just studying the era, and then I got into, okay, well, who are the players? Well, Michael Jordan is easy, and Shaquille O'Neal for me. Those are two guys that I can be very happy collecting. Then I was, okay, baseball, Ken Griffey Jr. That's about it for me. Cal Ripken as well. I have like 2 Cal Ripken cards, but I consider that a player PC. And then football, well, that's easy. Excuse me, Barry Sanders, Jerry Rice. That's easy. Joe Montana, but he doesn't have much stuff. So I just, got into that era and went a little crazy.
Funny you mentioned the House of Jordan podcast. I talk about perfect timing. I don't think I've told anybody this story because now they're quite well known, but I was down in Kent, Washington visiting my dad, and I rolled into a card shop, the best one I've ever been to, and sadly he moved. It was Eagles Card Store. You can go on their page and look at where they were visiting. They were in there. They were in there just hanging out, and I come on in and like, hey, my name's, you say Christine, and what's your husband's name? Or
Chris and Christina.
Chris and Christina. They were like the nicest people, like, yeah, we're visiting all these places. Here's what we do to create content. I was like, wow, what are the odds? I mean, we're in a little old, Kent, Washington, and here we are. I know we ran into each other. It was great. And, but anyways, they were super, super friendly. But yeah, the Essential Credentials podcast was something that I will always look back on and cherish the beginning days of that, because we were really exposing people to those 90s inserts. Obviously getting Mike Kramer on there was really cool. And you've had the pleasure of speaking with Gene Arena from Arena Designs, but just getting just collectors on there who love the 90s deeply and digging into all these, unknown cards or really lesser known cards and proofs and all these crazy inserts that are now, if you look at price of PMGs, those 98 PMGs in baseball especially have just gone to heights that nobody ever saw coming. So it was certainly a fun time. But yeah, I'm glad that was a positive influence on your collection for sure. And just as usual, the dogs like to make an appearance. So thank you, dogs, for coming on in. They do it every episode. I love it. My landlords don't even know. I'm like, whatever, who cares? But you mentioned the Cal Ripken side. You got a 2-card player PC. How many player PCs do you have? And like, who's like numero uno, numero two, like within the top 2 PCs you got going?
So up until recently, I would have considered myself to have like 6 or 7 player PCs. But when I kind of organized things, I decided, because I had my collection organized by type. Baseball, football, vintage graded hockey, inserts, a few of the sets I had. And then I had Dale Howard-Chucks, Mark Scheifele's, Jeremy Roenick's, Ron Francis. Those were the core Solani. Those were the core player PCs. But when I went through and I reorganized the scans of all my collection, I realized that like I've got a lot of player PCs that I don't even realize I have, because I've got these cards that are living in other ways. They're in part of a set or they're part of something else. So I now basically doubled up on my scans and I organize folders that have just that one player's card. So I think it's 38 player PCs that I have. Yeah, 38. I have 3 Cal Ripken cards. Some of them I like for 7 of the cards I have under 10. 7 of the players I have under 10 cards. I don't care. To me, that's a player PC. The lowest is Cal Ripken. LeBron and Kobe, I have 4 cards of each. Those are my player PCs. No one's going to tell me the 4 cards is not enough for a player PC. And I know people like to say, how many cards does it take for you to be considered a player collector? It's up to you. I'm not going to say 1.
Right.
I'm going to say it's up to you. If 1 is 1, then it's going to be up to the individual. But anyway, I'm at 38 of those. But I also have another 10 that I could add to that list and put like a dozen cards in them. I just haven't done that yet. So
okay,
probably close to 50.
And would you say that Howard-Chuck was the first, like the main PC that you had? Because you mentioned to me about cutting down on that a little bit. Was that the one that was the collection for you for a while?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, of all those 38, I'm looking at them now by quantity of cards. I have the data. Howard-Chuck, I have 256 cards, which is nothing compared to Al and Iginla. It's nothing, right? I mean, he's got 4,000, I think he told me. But I also don't collect every card. I don't need many cards. I just don't go after. So I have 256, and I'm actually going to be scaling that back probably by 70 or 80 cards. And I'm like, okay, it's enough. Next is Wayne Gretzky, 126 cards, Sidney Crosby, 92, Solani, 76, Ovechkin, 55, Lemieux, 45, McDavid, 37, Jagger, Sakic, Ginla, Waugh, Medano, Scheifele, Eisman, Jordan, Thornton. Keeps on going.
Okay. Well, and do you see yourself, you said you had a few others that could be, I'm really curious. You spend, plenty of time paying attention to the league and seeing other players that become popular later on post-retirement. Are there any players that you could see yourself? I don't know. That's why I mentioned like being influenced by guests of, come on, any other players that you could see yourself maybe thinking about collecting down the road? Maybe Bedard's coming up. He's going to be the talk of the town, for years, I'm sure, if he even starts off kind of hot. But is there anybody coming up or anybody in the league now that you look at and you're like, that could be a fun little side PC to start?
I mean, on the episode I did Sunday, the PWCC hockey episode with Josh Madigan of Hockey Cards Gong Show, he was talking a lot about Tim Stützle on Ottawa, and I happen to have a couple of cool Stützle cards. So I started thinking about it. Maybe I'm not going to take them to Expo with me. Maybe him. Probably not. Probably not. Cale Makar is an obvious one. I have a couple really cool cards of his. But I think I'm going to take them to Expo and put them in the showcase. So probably not. Connor Bedard's he's a good one, because if he's going to be the next in line after Crosby, McDavid, Makar, if that's going to be the case, then I'm sure I will have a Connor Bedard collection at some point in time. I'm not going to go after young guns and that kind of thing. I don't have any young guns in my collection anymore. I'm going to go after some cards at some point, and not necessarily. I'm not going to go after his Cup RPA. I mean, that's going to be $40,000 out of the gate.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to go after one of those, but I'll go after some under the radar cards that I think are really cool and maybe on the rare side, and maybe have potential for some a fun ride as far as the value goes.
When you look at all those collections, those PCs that you have of these players, is there one that, because I'm thinking as you were reading them off, I'm like, I wonder how that got started. Or is there one up there that you are kind of surprised to see that you've amassed as many as you have? Because for me, I think I see the Crosby one and I'm thinking, where, beyond him just being such an amazing player, I think we can all agree on that. But is there one that stands out to you that you go, wow, this is surprising?
Well, yeah, like Jágr, for example. I've got 36 Jágr cards, and if you would have asked me before I did this process I did a couple months ago, I would have said I probably have 9 or 10 Jágr cards, and most of them are living in other sets, so I don't really consider them part of my Jágr collection. They're in the Masterpieces set, or they're in my Luxury Suite stick set, or the Six-Side Signatures, or whatever set they're in. So when I actually pulled all those cards out of all these sets and put the player stacks together, which I only did with images, I didn't do with the cards, I was like, wow, I actually have 36 Jágr cards. I have 28 Patrick Waugh cards. I didn't know I had that many because I never organized them that way. So Joe Thornton's a good one. I have 24 Joe Thornton cards. Like, I didn't realize that. So yeah, those are the ones that surprised me. Anything else, like, not that surprised. Like Shane Doan, I consider myself a Doan collector. I only have 11 cards, but I have 11 awesome Shane Doan cards. Right. He was the last active Winnipeg Jet in the NHL, and a good guy too. Jeremy Roenick, I have 18 Roenick cards. He's a guy that I've been player collecting for several years. I only have 18 cards. I don't need 500 or 50. I'm really content with 18, and I may not add anymore, or I probably will, but
never say never, Jeremy. You never know what's going to show up in a showcase that just really makes you go, ooh, okay.
I know.
Maybe another one. That's so interesting when you say that, because we had chatted about that when I was on your show about, Matt, how do you, I'm sure you're going to talk about this with Al. He's got 3,000 more than I do almost, but like, how do you love every card? And it's I think when you're really focusing, but when you're focusing on just one player, I mean, I have a baseball player I collect, football player with case hits, and then one hockey player, and other than Leland Irving. That's just a nice little side PC because I'm the only person going after his cards. But I really have to say that every Flurry card makes me excited because I can find something. But in your case, I bet you could say the same thing about the 8 cards in a PC that you have. It's the same concept. You just have more of different players,
Yeah.
So I think that's important to always have that, right? You always want to make sure that everything that's in your collection, you still have that feeling. Or in your case, take it to the expo and put it in the showcase, right?
Well, and that's why I go through I usually do this when I prepare for expo. So twice a year I go through my collection looking for cards that I might be ready to move. And when I did it this last time and I went through my Howard Chuck collection, and I always recommend, like, if you do it, let it sit for a week and then go through again. Make sure you're willing to move those cards. Don't act too impulsively. But I pulled out a bunch of Howard Chuck cards. I'm like, I don't need this many Howard Chuck cards. And I've got so many. I'm sure some people would like some of them. So if you don't love it, maybe it's time to move it. But I also go through some of my cards. I'm like, man, I wish I could whittle this down a bit, but can I get, nope, can't let that go. Nope, can't let that. Nope, love you. Like,
yeah, right.
Not letting you go,
Right. Well, I have to say, when my father was here last summer and the showcases were in the living room, which they'll never be out here again, just for light purposes, they were fine. But I took a picture of him and I still have it. And he was just staring at them. He said, "Holy bleep," when he walked into here for the first time. He goes, "I can't believe that." And to see him have that reaction, knowing where he helped me get all the cards I own. My parents in Alaska hardly ever bought me anything. But he looked at me and he goes, "Promise me you will never sell your Marc-Andre Fleuries." And I go, "Ooh, okay, like this is a pretty serious commitment." But at that moment, I was like, okay, I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in this hobby. And so I have never whittled them down unless they're dual cards. So I have sold a Brodeur Fleury auto to then help me get the PMG green from this year or the most recent Metal Universe. Because I feel like if it's just a card of him, easy to let a dual go, So I do have my ways of kind of whittling it down, but it's almost impossible at this point. So I give you a lot of credit for being able to do that, man, for sure. Beyond cards, though, you've got a pretty nice little collection from other things you got going on behind you there, right? You've got some old Atari games. We've got some old gaming systems. You mentioned you're a collector at heart, and that doesn't just mean in the hobby and in sports cards. Has that been something you've been doing for a long time, or is that more of a recent endeavor, getting all the retro gaming stuff there?
Yeah, I mean, I love nostalgia. The 80s. I grew up in the 80s and the early 90s, I guess, and like all the things that I spent my time doing. Those nostalgia's, it's like medicine for me. Like when you're raising a family, or you've got a job that has some stress involved, or you're just trying to survive, thinking there's peacefulness and calmness in those things that remind you of the time when you didn't have to worry about all the things you have to worry about as an adult. And so, I've always been, I went through a comics phase, but not superhero comics. I collected other types of comics. I used to collect as a young kid. I was collecting candy wrappers. Like I would buy a roll of Lifesavers and keep the tube and sit it on top of my dresser standing up so I could see the nice colors. I just liked it. Now I follow some candy wrapper accounts on Instagram because
nice.
I'm like, I think it's neat. The video game thing it's not so new. Like I have all my old iPhones, went back to the iPhone 2. I have my original Nintendo Game Boy. I have like behind me, and now you'll notice that the Millennium Falcon that Al gave me yesterday is kind of blocking a bunch of this right now. But behind the Millennium Falcon it's like a bunch of they're not all my originals, but many of them are old electronic games. I mean, playing a handheld electronic game with just little LED like red lines moving around being the player, like a literal dash was the player and another dash was the football. When in the 80s, that was the shiznit, that was it. So
yeah,
I like remembering those years when things were not quite as complex as they are today. And yeah, I bought some graded video games, and they're graded, but I bought them. I didn't even really look at the grade. That game, I like I like the slabs for these things. They really display well. They stand up nicely. They're not going to fall over. They're protected. So I've gotten to some of those. I also like hobby items. You know, like you can't really see it, but I've got some pretty neat hobby adjacent type of collectibles that I've acquired over the years. Bobby Burrell has been very helpful with me. He sold me some really cool O-Pee-Chee factory items over the years.
Right.
Yeah, that's what comes to mind. Hard Rock Cafe pins. I mean, I worked at when I told you I went to Australia in 1990. Me and my buddy, we both got jobs as bus boys at the Hard Rock Cafe in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
And we got the staff pin, and then you got pins for good. I got a couple of good performance pins. I remember some customer came in once and paid me like $300 for a pin off my apron because it was a rare one that I got for doing good work one night, sort of thing. And then I started collecting Hard Rock Cafe pins. I've got a binder of them to this day. I still have them. I don't buy them anymore, but I've had them. So I can't help but collect. I mean, I've collected slot machine glass. The glass that would be on a slot machine. I've got 4 glass plates from vintage slot machines that are they used to be displayed up there. Now where you wouldn't be able to see them, but now they're not because they were literally hanging off the wall. And my kids come in here. I don't want one of those things falling off on my kid glass. So I took them down. But yeah, I collect.
That's great. Well, I have so many questions I want to get to, but the one that comes to mind is, as far as your family goes, I love hearing about this from people who have a family who are passionate collectors. What do they all think about your collecting? Like, do they love it? Are they kind of like, whatever? I'm always curious to hear their impression of what you do and your passion.
Well, so I've got a big family. You're talking about my parents, my wife, my kids, my cousins, my aunts and uncles. Get a bit more.
Well, your immediate family, the ones that are at home with you, the ones that get to see you and hear you talking about the hobby, obviously, hey, got this new card in the mail. Like, is that something that they find themselves appreciating a little bit, or is it more of a dad's doing what he loves to do type thing?
Well, so when it comes to my wife, she's indifferent. I mean, she thinks it's cool. She doesn't really care, but she's happy that I love it. I'll show her something. I'll go like, what do you think of this card? She'll, yeah, it's a nice, like she'll tell me, she's not just like, I don't care, it's a card. She'll be that one's nice. If I show her 3 cards, what's your favorite? So I like that one. That one's prettier. That one has good colors, or it's just neat,
Right.
And I mean, since Sports Cards Live, I mean, it's become my life. The hobby's become my life more than it ever was. So but there's never any discussion between us about, how much are you spending, or what did that cost? Or she asks sometimes, what's that worth, just because she finds it, interesting. But that's a purely out of interest from her perspective. My kids they just turned 6 and 4. So they know Sports Cards Live. They know the logo. They say, Daddy, are you going to do Sports Cards Live? They don't know what it is that I'm doing, but they know that it's a thing in our house. Right. They don't, I let them play with cards. They like to play with cards. But of course they only play with base cards because they literally trash them. Oh yeah. But that's fine. I think about my mother, when I would take my paper route money and go blow it on cards, that was frowned upon. I had to lie and sneak the cards into the house that I was spending that or my allowance on or whatever. Nowadays, she's like impressed that the cards have the value that they do, and thinks that I'm smart to have been a collector this whole time. So, and my father, the same thing. He thinks it's really cool. He says, you know what you're doing. You're good at this. Make a go of it, sort of thing. Right. So.
That was definitely something that I was a little apprehensive about. My stepfather, especially, he can pinch a penny till it screams, and he's a fisherman here who spends tons of money making sure the boat works, but that's the thing, making the money. But I was a little bit nervous when he came over here the first time, when I had the 2 cases on those corners between, on either side of the TV. I'm like, he's going to see it. And he actually was like, I got to admit, man, these are pretty cool. So to hear
Well, they
that
are.
from him, I mean, when you put all the sweet patches and autos and stuff in a display case of one guy, and you're like, okay, the colors are cool, that's unique, and then you tell him why are these so special? All right, good. I've gotten past that because he the
Yeah.
same thing. I sneak the cards in the house and hope they didn't ask about them. But that's neat to hear. Well, hey, you mentioned the hobby is what your life is now. It's your career right now, and you're wearing the tag sweater right now. That's been really cool to see and hear that get started up and see the slabs. Alan from the Essential Credentials was at the event that you did. Was it in San Francisco that you did that event? Or it was somewhere in California, correct?
The Burbank show was in
Okay.
Ontario, California, about a month ago. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying. There was another thing he went to. Maybe it wasn't even in California, but he went to something last year. It was a big. Was it like the opening event, maybe, or the announcement, or something pretty
Well,
significant?
there was another Burbank show in Burbank, California in August, the first one. That was a different location, also called the Burbank show, where we did sort of launch the
Okay.
brand for the first time publicly, like with a setup. And then we were
Yeah.
at the Beckett Industry Summit in Vegas a month later, at the beginning of October. Those are
All right.
and then Toronto back in November are the ones that we've set. Oh, yeah, San Diego, Del Mar, the Union Marketplace show in Del Mar was back in October as well.
I
Maybe that's
believe it
where
was
you're
that
thinking.
one. I believe it was that one. Yeah. And he was very impressed with the slabs. And we had a really good discussion about it just behind closed doors, not on an episode or anything. But just, looking back and seeing where you guys have got to now, are you really pleased and proud and happy with how everything has been going since you guys decided to get this company off the ground and offer a new style of grading for all of us?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more thrilled to be a part of the company. It's an amazing company, and the slab is easily the best slab in the hobby. I'm sorry to say, but it just is. And
It looks
I
pretty
I,
sick.
I have some. I just got some back that I had reholdered because we changed the grading. We adjusted some things in the grading scale, so I got some cards back, and like I was looking at them yesterday, like they're just gorgeous. They make the cards look so good. The slab itself is just so classy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I got involved very late in this company. The company's 11 years old, and I've only been involved for under a year.
Oh, I didn't know
So,
that.
well, you wouldn't know
Wow.
because they didn't reveal themselves to the hobby until last April or May when they came on my show. That was their reveal through the Sports Cards Live series that we did. But it
Mhm.
took them like 10 years to get ready to reveal and to develop the AI technology to grade a card. So, this company's been around a long time. So, but the way you stated the question was like, are you happy to be, where you guys are at and launching? I am, but I came in at the end. So, with
Okay.
all that said, yeah, Tag is a very tactical company, very strategic. It's been around for so long that the founder, who the CEO, wants to make sure that everything we do is done right. And we're not going to do everything right, of course, but we're doing as right as we can. And so we're being very tactical with our launch. So you can't just go onto the website and fill out a submission form and send cards in. We're doing drops. Actually, tomorrow at I think 11 o'clock Pacific is drop 3. So if you want to buy a 5 or 10 card grading package, you have a window to do that tomorrow. We are doing that to control our intake so that we make sure that all of our processes are a well-oiled machine. So,
Mhm.
and we're basically there, but we have a few things to implement until we're totally there. I expect us to be like fully open by we're saying we should have everything in place by June, but it'll take another 30 days to make sure everything's working properly. So July, and this isn't the grading system. This is not the grading system. This is procedural stuff. So July, I'm
Okay.
saying like by August, we should hopefully be ready to accept all the submissions that we can get, and then really get out there and build some relationships with various, kind of drop off locations and LCSs and breakers and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. So we've got a plan. We have a plan. That's a thing. And we're sticking to the plan. And that's what I love about the company. I say it a little bit more, inappropriately, but we are not messing around here. Tag is not messing around.
That's
and
good.
so, yeah, like a year from now, it'll be a completely different, we'll have a completely different sort of presence in the hobby. So
Okay.
I just tell people, be patient with us. We're getting there. And, but when you have the opportunity to get cards graded with us, take it, because we are the best graders in the business. There's that I'm very confident in saying. We're the most accurate grading company, consistent, transparent, But you mentioned I'm wearing the sweater. My wife calls this my uniform. I wear this sweater everywhere I go every day. Like, it's just so comfortable. So I wear it all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I couldn't be happier to be a part of Tag. I love everything that it stands for. I think it's what the hobby needs. And I have a long-term view. And I think that, down however many years down the road, Tag is going to be one of the leading grading companies. And I know that that's going to happen.
Well, can you show us a slab real quick for anybody that's watching that's maybe not seen the slab? Would you mind showing us what it looks like?
Yeah. So which one do you want to look at? Because I've got a bunch of really nice.
I'll let you pick whichever one you want. Go for it.
Sure, I'll pick here. I guess we're mostly a hockey show tonight, right? So
yeah, I saw a houndstooth in there. I did see a houndstooth.
You saw the hound? Okay, I'll pull up the houndstooth. I'm going to take it out of the sleeve because it looks so much better. But this is just so you know, it's a 2000. Oh, I can look at the slab. It's a 2019 O-Pee-Chee Platinum Retro Green Houndstooth, numbered out of 15. It's Sidney Crosby.
Wow, look at
that! And it's a
slab.
10. So you got the industry standard grade there, 10. Then in that box it says 987. So it's a 987 out of 1,000, which is a 990 is our pristine. So it's a gem mint 987. Gem mint starts at 950. We don't have a 9.5. So 9s are 900 to 949. 9.5s are 9. How does it work? Oh gosh. 9. How am I not even remembering this right now? 9.10. No. I got it.
Go for it. You're fine. I put you on the spot. I should have told you it was coming.
I'm totally brain cramping right now again. And let me just see something here if I can find it.
I do have to say, man, those slabs, the shine of that card looks even better in that slab. I mean, it's better than a what is it? Like an Ultra Pro One Touch is all right. The Pro molds, in my opinion, look the best because they're like that case. They're very, very shiny and transparent. So yeah, they're beautiful.
So okay, so a 9. Yeah, we don't have a 9. I was confusing myself. We don't have a 9.5. Duh. Right. Okay, so a 9 is 900 to 945. A 10 is 950 to 989, and then a 10 pristine is 990 to 1,000. So this is a 987, which puts it 3 points away from a pristine. But as I mentioned, the slab is, I mean, it's just so nice, so clear. It's easily the clearest plastic used in the hobby, and transparent slab, right? There's no paper in here. You can't counterfeit this slab. This is printed right on the inside of the plastic. There are security features as well. And if you scan the QR code, it takes you to the grading report and tells you exactly what defects were identified and what count against the score, the final score. So
wonderful.
I mean, and it's all about the card, right? Like it's not about the brand, the label, which is still very classy. If you ask me, it's just beautifully designed. So,
well, and that was going to be my other question is, like, from a collector's standpoint, if you weren't even involved in the company, I still feel like, from what you're saying, you would definitely believe in them and give them a try at the very least, right?
I would be putting all of my cards that qualify, like, because Tag right now is only grading cards from 2000 forward, and we're not doing thick cards yet, but we're going to be doing thick cards. We're going to be going back to the 90s, 80s, 70s. We do grade autograph cards, but only pack pulled autographs. Okay. So, any card I have that is the Tag will slab will be slabbed eventually. I'm just, we have our capacity is so controlled right now that I'm not stepping in and putting myself ahead of the line. I can be patient. I think I have 30 Tag slabs right now, because I'm going to bring them all to the expo and display them, and I'm going to be representing Tag at the expo too, even though I'll be vending at my own booth. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And then when you say, because I've wondered this too, when you say thick cards, first of all, what's the maximum thickness you can send in right now? Is it 35 or 55?
Yeah, it's 55, but
okay,
keep in mind that some 55s are thicker than other 55s just because we're not, there's no major standard there. I mean, it's measurable, but the companies don't adhere to any strict standard. So yeah, we've had some 55s that we've received them. It's like they don't fit, but we've had other ones that do. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. And is there a plan? Thanks for saying that, Jeff. Very nice, man. Is there eventually there is a plan to work into the 55 and over? I mean, obviously those slabs
180.
are going to be 180 is okay. That's the cup cards. Perfect.
Listen, I mean, great. I'm involved in this company, and I know that if you can't slab an auto patch or an RPA, I mean, you have to be able to. So the molds are already in the works for Tag. It's just a matter of time before we're doing RPAs, sorry, auto patches up to 180 point. I don't know that we ever need to get thicker than that.
I mean, yeah, there's very few. Some of those net cord cards and whatnot, but I'm of the opinion that most cards need to be raw unless it's, certain cards. I think I could see a Young Gun Flurry. I would like to grade that one day with you guys, and maybe a couple of his other rookies, but that's about it. I like having them in my one touches. But hey, we all have our own preferences. But I will say that Tag, I've told you this before on your show, Tag has definitely got me thinking, maybe there's a few I could put in there because they will display beautifully in the curio cabinet. They once the lighting gets put in there, oh my gosh, yeah, they're going to be perfect.
There's no distraction. There's no label that's different colors or PSA with the red border or SGC with the black inlay, which I'm just not a fan of the black inlay personally. CSG has a gold label now, so and listen. I have many cards in all those slabs and I love them. I'm not anti those companies, but I'm way more pro PSA Tag. But also the other thing is that, when I compare Tag to human grading companies, I mean, those companies do the best they can with their limited capabilities being human grading, being human graders. So they built up this industry and kudos to them.
Right. Well, I have one question, and then I will get to these, and then we'll get to our rapid fire. So my one question is, I have my only significant graded card. I think it's my only graded Flurry, honestly, is my PMG Green from the very first Fleer Retro. It's the most expensive card I've ever purchased and probably my most significant my most significant eBay purchase. My most significant non-eBay purchase is from you. So we've got those two, but I never grade the Buried Treasure. I love the way it's displayed and how it looks, but the PMG Green is in a different company's holder and is the highest from any company. That being said, are you guys going to be offering the chance to send in a slab from another company and have it reslabbed with you guys, or are we still at you need to get it out yourself and then send it to us?
We will be doing crossovers that way where we will break them out for you. We're actually currently investigating equipment to de-slab a card so that we're not chiseling it out of there like you and I would do in our own houses.
Yes, and that's a card I would never do that to.
We're looking. We've identified some solutions, and it's just a matter of ordering the right equipment, installing it, and then doing that. But again, that's we'll be there back to when I was talking about that July August sort of time period. I expect us to be there then.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the the National. I'm sure there will be a presence for Tag there, being that it's at the end of July. And that will probably be another card that I eventually would like to cross over because as much as I love it in the slab that it's in, it would look even better in that one. So I'm all about presentation, when you're looking at cards.
and you're a PC guy. So if you're right now, people's concern is secondary market value. I'm convinced in due course, Tag slabs will be the most valuable slabs because they will be the most accurately graded ones. So people who really want to know what they're getting will know that with Tag, you know what you're getting. With the other companies, it could be a 7 one day and 8 the next day. And that's just the way it is. I noticed Carl has a really good
Yeah,
question there.
let's definitely get down to that. So I wanted to just real quick for Al, he did ask, are you going to be at the Western Expo next month, or will Tag be there?
Tag won't be. I mean, I will be there. I will have some Tag slabs, but Tag itself will not. No one else from Tag will be there.
Okay, great. And just a random one. Yeah, where did Gomez come from on Hobby and Say? You own it, by the way. I know we didn't really go into depth about that. You purchased it. I've met some wonderful people there, had a great discussion on there. So thank you for that. But yeah, where'd the name come from?
So Gomez, Gomaz in Canada. Gomez is a nickname that I've had from grade school. My youngest friends, and I remember walking into a birthday party at my friend's house, and this is pretty funny, Matt. So forgive me for telling the story, but we were probably 10 years old, and I think no matter who came down the stairs next into my friend's basement for his birthday party would have gotten that name. Didn't matter who it was. It just happened to be me. I think the young boys were talking. I think they just learned the word gonads.
Oh, gotcha. Nice.
And they're talking about and they're gonads, and it turned into Gomez, and it just stuck with me. That I still have friends that call me that from those days.
Okay.
So when it came time on the internet to pick a handle, it's the only nickname I ever had.
Nice. Okay, that's great. It's very significant too.
not the answer you were expecting, but the reason. But there you go.
I wonder if anybody on there actually knows that. That's quite funny. That's great.
I've told the story a couple of times.
Okay, great. And then Al just mentioned about the early computer games and whatnot. Oh yeah, I definitely some great memories from those days as well. So Carl's first mention here, Jimmy, were you frustrated by the closed door grading that has been the standard since the beginning? I've seen collectors and videos get cards back from PSA and be perplexed by the grade and say, I am sending this to Tag to find out if insert grading company, whoever that is full of it.
I mean, that's pretty much exactly why I loved Tag from the moment that I discovered them, because, the business, I'm really trying to watch my tongue here, but I think Carl and I have the exact same feelings on this. And what I like to say is when Tag sets up to grade at card shows, which we've done once, which was Burbank in February, and we'll be doing it again at the Burbank Anaheim show in August. I don't think we'll be doing it in Chicago at the National. It's a big procedure to get our grading equipment to another location. And it takes semi trucks and unionized drivers and all this stuff. So we're not going to be grading on site in Toronto, Edmonton. Anyway, when we do grade on site, we are not grading behind a curtain. We are not hiding our graders from the public. You can watch it's not like you're right there, but you can see through our plastic walls at the Burbank show, your card going into the image capture, which is where the data is collected. And then you can see it being slabbed. You can see the slab being printed because we print our slabs. So you can see it being in final review. You can see your card go through the process.
That's awesome.
We are all about transparency. So, we do have some secret sauce that we're not going to share. Like our algorithms are proprietary, and we don't want that to get in the hands of our competitors, but we're as transparent as we can possibly be, which is, exponentially more transparent than any of the competitors. So, I mean, Carl's, was I frustrated? Carl, I mean, I've got hundreds of slabs. I've done several submissions, and you don't know why your card gets the grade it got. That's why with Tag, you get a full grading report free. It's included with the cost of grading. I love that about Tag. Who doesn't want that?
Of course.
Some sellers might not want them, but I mean, I love that. And then his final comment there about, I've seen collectors get cards back and saying, I'm going to send it to Tag to see if that company's full of it. Well, I was told a story this morning on the phone by our CEO about a card that we looked at the Mint Collective for a customer, and it was a PSA 7, and didn't really know why. We graded it, and I don't know if I think I can talk about this. I'm hopefully that submitter isn't watching. I don't know if he knows the grade yet on the card, but we graded an 802, which is an 8. So there's a big difference between a 7 and an 8, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's a weak 8 for us, but it's still an 8, and we know exactly the defects on the card. So, and we didn't just say, hey, here's a computer, tell us what grade the card is. That took 10 years of testing and programming and development and all this and that to figure out how for the system to figure out how to grade a card. Right. And somebody had to teach the computer. Well, he's like our head of grading, but his name's Scott Maxwell, and he was a 9-year senior grader at PSA. So he's got a very good reputation. When I meet somebody at a show and they are skeptical about tag and they've been in the business for 40 years and they know the beginning of grading, and they say, well, how do you guys know how to grade? Well, I say, well, our senior grader is a guy who is this or that. Oh, what's his name? I say, Scott Maxwell. This is a true story. They go, oh, okay. You guys are serious. You guys aren't just messing, like I say, right. we aren't screwing around here at tag.
Right.
Trust me. Like it's like everything is as good as it can be there. So yeah. So to Carl, I mean, that's a great approach. Yeah. That's why I think our slabs will be worth more comparatively than others. Right now, PSA is far and away the leader because of the brand, but you go on Instagram any day of the week and you're going to see people complaining. I think people use PSA because they feel that there aren't any other options a lot of the time, or simply because it gets the most money on the secondary market.
That's what I would think too. Yeah.
Well, that's because the secondary market doesn't really care what the card's condition is. They just care what the grade is. Once people actually start caring about their cards, which I know many do, we're gonna spread like wildfire. I know, because I'm a hardcore collector with a very broad collection in other slabs, and I can't wait to get them all into tag slabs.
No, that'll be really nice for you to have them all be the same like that. But I love how you say it's all about transparency, and then you look at the slab and you're like, well, yeah, literally, because the slab, I mean, it is. But Carl's other question, it says, how appealing was the idea of an open door grading company and the importance of this within the hobby to you in your decision to join tag?
Paramount. When tag told me that they were ready to reveal themselves to the hobby and wanted to do it on my show, I was very flattered, and that's a wonderful compliment. But I said, well, that's great. But because as soon as you come on, and we do a series, it's like I'm endorsing you. So I'm not going to align my brand with yours until I know more. So I got to come down to LA and see the facility. So I did. Went down to LA, and I was just blown. I've told the story several times now, but I was blown away with what I saw. Met the whole team, met the AI development head of that team, who's a third party. Met them on a Zoom call, and he explained to me what he's been working on and how I saw the slab, I saw the equipment, I saw the printing, I saw the image capture, the layout of the office, the way these guys are just prepared and so smart. This company is run by an absolute titan of business. Steve Cass he's a pro. He's an absolute pro. And I mean, I was blown away with what I saw. So yeah. So to Carl's question, it wasn't just that, Carl. It was everything about this company. I fell in love with them, and I did those 5 episodes, and then it worked out 6 weeks after my job ended that I was able to join them, and we could work out a deal.
Excellent. Well, I can say that those of us that have done the roundtable before, those of us who will be doing it again, and the newer Instagram collectors that are hopping in there with us, many of which have really expressed interest, in getting cards graded with tag. I know Logan, who's Lomac12 on Instagram, he really likes to grade his cards. Out of all of us, all of the guys that I talk with frequently, he's the biggest into grading, and he's like, yeah, the next time I send stuff in, it's going to tag. Like, he's made that decision, which is big for him, So it's he won't be the only one, as you're saying.
Well,
for sure.
Yeah. And I understand not wanting to grade cards because you want to have the cards. It just depends on the collector and the collection. If your collection is, you have to, and I talked about this on Instagram the other day, a clip from an episode of Sports Cards Live, succession. what happens when we die with our cards? Well,
I know.
if they're
That's right.
graded, it's going to be a lot easier for them to be sold on the open market. You know, you're going to get like fair value if your
Right.
card is graded, I believe. So, and not fair value, but just, you know, more buyers will be more comfortable, I would say. So
Okay.
if nothing else, that's a good reason to grade your cards eventually, but wait until you're ready. Like, I'm never going to pressure anyone. I'm never going to be that hardcore sales guy to, oh, you got to grade your cards with tag. No, if
Right.
it's what you want to do, but obviously I'm going to talk about it because I'm so authentically in love with this company and the service and the product.
Which is perfect for you to be involved with it too. You know what I mean? Like, imagine somebody getting into it that's just kind of like doing it just for money or whatever, just to have something to promote. Like, it's good to know that you're authentically promoting them and backing that company. And, you know, you've gained a lot of respect and notoriety in the hobby. So it's good to know that a collector, kind of a true collector like us, I don't know if that phrase bothers people, but somebody who just loves collecting and has loved it for many, many years is backing this company. Anybody could get up and say, well, you know, just like supporting them to say, like, this is the one, you know.
But I also say to the hobby, and I said this when I posted on Instagram that I was taking this job. I said that I'm representing the hobby on the inside of this company. Right. So I said I'll put the hobby first, the company second, and Jeremy Lee third in the decisions that I'm making at Tag.
That's awesome.
And
that's
in the influence I have with our senior management.
Right. Well, we have a voice in you. You know, I mean, you're representing a lot of us. So
I'm there on behalf of the hobby first. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, hey, let's have a little bit of fun here before we call it good. And this is going to the audience who's watching right now, too. We're going to do a bit of rapid fire with Jeremy, just like 15 to 30-second answers if you can. I know it's hard when we're talking about the hobby because we could always talk about it. But I'm just going to throw some questions. Some I have done on other episodes, and I do have a few for specifically you. If anybody would like to ask like a question to Jeremy, just like that's got a quick answer, like names question, where did the nickname come from? Which, by the way, he said didn't expect that. So it's good to surprise him with that one. But let's have a little bit of fun here and just throw some random stuff at you and hear what you have to say, and then we'll say our goodbyes. But all right, so we're going to start with your category of your hosting of Sports Card Live. What's one of the funniest moments that have happened on an episode that you can think back to? Something silly or a complete surprise? What comes to mind?
Man, I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer this so well because not. Oh gosh, what comes to mind?
There was one of the bigger surprises. Oh, go ahead.
It wasn't so much a surprise, but are you familiar with the account on Instagram, Card Killer, with K's?
I don't think so.
Card Killer's an account on Instagram that and an individual who wears a mask and didn't really reveal who he was to the hobby. He's a card artist. He's one of these card art guys. Mm-hmm. And I got to know him at the National. He was walking with a mask on, and he came on he was a guest on my show. I think it was about August of 2021, and he wanted to reveal his face to the hobby, and he wanted to do it on my show. And I thought that was, sorry, it's not a funny thing or a silly thing, but it's
unique.
That was an emotional, and it was an emotional moment too, because he really considers himself an artist. And he is an artist, but it's like it's in his mental psyche, and part of his being as an artist was being masked. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he was willing to unmask himself and do it, and he wanted to do it with me on my show, was like a real neat moment for me that I'll probably never forget. So that's what comes to mind with that question. All
right. Wow. I'll have to go back and look at that. And that was a good answer. That was definitely different than I expected. And that's why these questions are fun. You've had so many people on, and I know that's going to be hard. There's probably so many if you were to go back, but has there been a piece of advice from a collector or a person in the industry who's come on and it's just had a profound impact on you? Do you remember what the quote was or who it was?
I did really like Al's quote tonight. But,
yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one.
Yeah. There was so much advice being given during the run up in cards during the pandemic, and again now during the run down in cards. Oh gosh, like I'm set in my ways, but I'm also open to new things. And I know what I like when it comes to card collecting. Um, but there was that whole movement towards consolidation a couple years ago. Just trade up for the biggest card you can get. And I never agreed with that. Not that I never felt comfortable with that for myself. I'd rather have $20,000 cards than one $20,000 card. I'm more to love, more to enjoy, right? They're all the same size, right?
Agreed.
So I think that whole consolidation movement really got me thinking about the other way, the contrarian approach to it. And maybe that was like the reverse impact that had me talking more and more about, not against that, because if that works for you, go for it. I'm not going to judge you on how you collect. That's your approach. But it had me talking more about my approach, and that's what comes to mind with that question, Matt.
Okay, I
have poor recall. I don't watch my stuff. I've never watched an episode over again. So
really,
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't.
Nice.
Once it's
Are you comfortable? Are you comfortable hearing your own voice though? Like when you're going and seeing clips, are you perfectly comfortable with that at this point? I imagine you are, right?
I am now. I will watch like I'll probably watch this one. I watch myself on other people's shows.
Okay.
I don't watch my episodes back. I want to go back and watch the early ones again, and I will eventually.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I wanted to ask a couple of those. Those are the ones that kept coming up as we were going through. I'm like, I got to remember to ask these at the end. But I have a questionnaire that I call the Mr. Burroughs questionnaire, funny enough, because I'm a teacher and I love asking these silly questions to my class. But almost everybody's answered these in one way or another. So I'm going to throw these at you now. When you look at Upper Deck, and again, some people that work there. We've had the pleasure of meeting some, and you've probably met a lot more, which is awesome. What type of card do you like from them the most right now that they're putting out?
On the recent sets that they've been putting out?
Yeah.
Gosh. I mean, I love the cup, just like
in general.
Doesn't everyone? I mean, like,
yeah, right.
Like, I love auto patches, but I also really like some of these new inserts. Some of the, not just new, but even the retro inserts. Like, I don't buy a lot of ultra modern product. So I really like this. I think that we're going to look back in time at the inserts of the 2010 decade, the Fleer and the Flare inserts that came out. So, a lot of them are based on older designs, but I love that stuff. I love the jambalayas and the PMGs and the electrifying and the easy answer is O-Pee-Chee Platinum. That's the easy answer for me. I love if I look at the cards that I got in tag grades, like here's a Gretzky Skybox Premium Rubies, numbered out of 50. Love this card. That's an Upper Deck card. PMG, the PM. This is the employee PMG Connor McDavid, and then these are all O-Pee-Chee Platinums. I love this card. This one here. This is the one I showed you before. This is the Crosby Golden Treasures 1 of 1. I love it. I love it. And then here's a Emerald Surge from 2016 Crosby, numbered out of 10. Like, these are shiny. I can just look at these all day long and just like under the light. So I love O-Pee-Chee Platinum, but not all the parallels. But I do love several of those parallels. Okay,
I'm surprised you didn't say Supreme patches, because that's something that they've continued to do really well. I know that you got a pretty nice collection of those over the years.
I can't remember everything, Matt. That's why. But yeah, I love Supreme patches. They are awesome. I love some of the stuff they did in their most recent the SPA Signature Legends series. I think that's really cool stuff in there.
That was impressive.
Yeah, and I like in Allure, I like those 16-bit cards.
Those are so nice. I'll tell you, man, I would do anything I would tell Billy, can you guys go back and make a flurry that gets into next year's, please? Like, I would do anything to have one of those. Yeah, I've got to find another player. That is one of the few sets I've ever seen where I go, you know what? I've got to find one, maybe to enjoy it for a little bit, maybe to enjoy it for a while. Maybe find a Sebastian Aho or something.
Yeah, good approach.
That would be great. All right, so I love hearing this answer from everybody because they all have different approaches. Instead of saying what's your most wanted card, my question is name one card that your collection needs.
Yeah, good. That's a well spoken question there. So there's right now my collection requires a 1933 Gaudi Lou Gehrig.
Okay.
And I feel that it also requires a T206 Ty Cobb red background portrait. Those are the two cards that, like, I love vintage. So when I think of my vintage collection, I've almost got all the cards I want. There's a few big ones I don't have. Those are two that are still within my means that I'm just waiting for the right copy at the right time that my collection definitely needs. So there you go.
Okay, wonderful. Now, this is probably going to be a tough answer for you, but I'd be happy to pull this up, maybe one or two answers to this question. But when you get onto Instagram and you're going through and getting your content posted and you're looking through and commenting back and whatever, can you name an account or two that you always kind of look forward to seeing posts from when they pop up on your feed?
Yeah, Frank Porco. Porco's
Oh, yeah.
pretty high up there for me, and I just really like the guy too. We've now met in person and did a deal in person, and just a lovely guy. So yeah, his account. I mean, look at the way he puts it out there.
Yeah.
And then there's, gosh, I'm terrible with names, Matt, and never mind. Now we got to remember 2 or 3 names for everybody.
You just maybe one more, one more.
Well, let me just go to my account for a second, and I mean, you know, there's all these collectors of like the rare insert hockey cards. And it's those guys, you know, like I mean, listen, there's all the regular, not the regulars, but there's like some of this. I'm just going to stop at Frank Porco. I'm going to pick one.
Perfect.
If that's okay.
There we go.
Otherwise, I'm going to leave somebody else out. And
right. And I know that that's a tough question for someone like you who's had the chance to meet so many wonderful people, and the list could go on. You know, I feel the same way, but it's always interesting to see the first one that pops into people's heads. And Frank, his presentation, his pictures, and the way that he posts them. I've done a few, tribute posts to the way that he does it. Yeah, I love it.
And I like, you know what, the if I could just say, I like a post where, like, some people just put a card up, tell you what it is, and that's the post. I'm like, right. That's so boring. Like, I want to see. I don't need a textbook, but I want to know a little bit about why that card fits in your collection, or why you love it, or how long you chased it for, or how it fits into your collection. I want to read something. Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's a lot more fun to do that. And then Carl, I got to give Carl a big shout out here. He is one of the best at looking at what I put as my description of why I love the card, and then responding and saying, well, I would like to find a Justin Williams of this, or I really like this Carey Price, or something. Like, he's so good about reading it and commenting towards it. And those are the discussions that we would have in person. You know, if I saw your card, like, dude, tell me about this Solani patch that you're showing me, that, the duck head, like, where did you see this? And why do you have it? And so, yeah, I agree. I love when people do that on their posts. Name a card that you miss a lot, that you don't own anymore.
God.
Besides the Flurry Berry treasure, clearly.
Yeah, I there's 2. I owned I don't forget the year, but it was a exquisite basketball. It was a Michael Jordan patch auto with a nice 3-color Bulls patch, numbered out of 100 or 75. I don't remember. And I sold it before the pandemic, and I missed that one. And then the other one was, I had a Tiger Woods SP Authentic Future Watch autograph rookie card out of $999 or whatever it is, 900. And I would love to have not sold those 2 cards.
Oh yeah, those are some tough ones, but we all have an answer to that question, which is great. There's way more that I love than I've left, so that's okay.
Exactly.
So we kind of talked about this, but just kind of a quicker answer. In what way do you enjoy spending time with your collection?
Man, like I just love, a lot of times I can just, no matter where I am, I have my collection with me because I have all my cards scanned. So I can just pull up my phone, go to the Dropbox app, go into my folder called PC, and then I have all my subfolders, and I can just pick a subfolder, open up, and there's all the cards. So whether it's my vintage hockey collection, which really is my graded, which goes all the way, well, anyway, my graded hockey collection, I can look at my baseball cards, my football cards, my masterpieces set, whatever it is, I can just sit there and look at my cards and just remind. I have, listen, I don't have tens of thousands of cards. I think I have about 2,600 cards, but that's enough that I don't always remember them all. So it's nice to, I actually in the past, over the years, Matt, I've made the deliberate decision not to look at my cards all the time because I don't want to get bored of them. I want to look at them every 6 months, not every month. So I don't follow that exactly, but
Right.
when I actually going through the cards and holding them, I
Right.
don't want to do it all the time. Now, I am getting older to the point where, I could probably afford to look at them more and more than I ever have because, I just can. I figure I only have about 25 years left with my collection. So I'll enjoy them as much as I can. But yeah, I just
Right.
love pulling them out, sometimes pulling them out and matching them together or looking at them on my phone. The whole process of scanning them and
Oh, that's fun.
like just
That's definitely another way to enjoy it too, because you're right. There's a process, right? I have a stack of I did a little live thing, and I had 2 cards come in the mail. I get to take them out, get to put them on the scanner, scan them, crop them, get everything perfect, put them on the website, update the count. There's this big old process, so that's great. And then Hockey Guy 2006, perfect timing because then we can stick with the theme of your collection. And this, I mean, you can take this any way you want. So what card or what part of your collection means the most to you?
it's so hard. I mean, it's such a hard question for me. And this answer would change day to day, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Like probably it would have to be my like vintage hockey cards, but boy, I'm sorry, baseball. Like I love you too. I love like, but if I were to just go to like my core interest is hockey. I love the vintage stuff. So it's the history. So, but I can't narrow it down from there. Is it my 1910 set, my 1911 set, or is my Gretzky rookie, my Howe rookie, my Orr rookie, my Crosby's, my Howard Chuck rookie? I mean, I can't pick a favorite. So it's
Right.
like
Right.
I appreciate the question from Chris here, but I also don't love being asked it because it's like I love both my kids equally,
Yeah, I knew you were going to go. I was going to say, how do you pick your favorite kid or student? I mean, I could, but then I can't because nobody would want to do something like that. It's like saying who's the greatest hockey player of all time. I mean, I guess that one's an easy one. Everybody agrees usually, but like who's the greatest hockey player, greatest goalie, or there's always going to be, you don't want to pick just one. I really enjoy this question a lot, and it's one that I think I want to do a super cut of just this answer. So I'm going to throw this to you in this way. What is a piece of advice you have for a young collector getting into the hobby? Like picture yourself when you got in, giving somebody a piece of advice that's going to really help them out. What would that piece of advice be?
Don't crack wax.
I like that you kept it simple. Good. That's perfect. I don't think we need to say anything else in depth. Don't do it. Chase what you want to buy, the players you want, the cards you want.
I've always considered myself like a sharpshooter. I'm going after the card I want,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll let other people take that risk.
Okay, perfect. What is a pet peeve in this hobby that you have right now? Like just looking at not throughout the years, but like right now, I know it's so many we could pick from, but what's the first one that comes to mind? Whether, selling, buying, whatever, big pet peeve you have.
Oh boy. I mean, I could approach this in so many ways. Oh man, I mean, yeah. I guess I'll go. I'm literally not sure where I'm going with this yet, but I've got a few pet peeves. So when it comes to social media, there's the conspiracy theorists out there, and I think that it's okay to question things, but not everything is a conspiracy. Not everything is a conspiracy. Simple as that. Um, you know, like when it comes to the world of a big pet peeve of mine is that a lot of hobbyists just blindly put their faith behind, say, PSA or BGS or SGC. And I just think that that's going to, in the long term, be a mistake. So is it a pet peeve of mine? So, but listen, I've been guilty of it too, and I continue to be guilty. I still buy cards in those slabs because that's where the cards are, and I want the cards. So, right. But I guess my pet peeve. Let me refine that. My pet peeve is people buying the slab and not the card. Okay. And listen, but why do I care? That shouldn't be. That's on them, not on me. But I guess just because I have such a, I'm so immersed in the hobby that it becomes a pet peeve. Okay. I could say cards coming out of packs damaged, but I understand that. I don't think that that's right. Well, what's yours? What's your pet peeve?
I mean, I think a lot of negativity in the hobby. It really makes me sad to see it. Upper Deck posts these pictures of these wonderful cards that are going to come out, and I'm just licking my chops. Like, please let Fleury be in one of those sets. Like the highlighters that just came out from Upper Deck. I don't know if you had a chance to see them yet, but they're like these acetate cards, and there's 5 different colors of them, and each of them are tougher to get. This is the easiest to get, but they're acetate and the green, the color match is his toughest one, and it's fun to collect. They're new, they're fun. You see these things get posted online, and so many people on Facebook and Instagram, as soon as Upper Deck puts those up, all negative comments. And I mean, I'll admit I've gone to bat for them or gone and like found the flaw in their reasoning and kind of laughed about it. It's just, there's a lot of collectors that I see, at least on social media, that are negative. So I would just like there to be a little more positivity in the hobby. I mean, if I'm a parent of a kid who wants to get in the hobby, I am like, do not let them go on there. Just see it through the lens of your parent and the friends that your parents are around that collect, because there's just too much negativity still. So that's mine. I would like to see people be a little more positive about things. Easy to be negative in today's world.
I think that's probably one of my pet peeves too, is just that people generally love to, lots of people love to complain about anything and everything. And there's a sense of entitlement too. People also forget that these companies aren't there for us. They're there for their shareholders. They're there to make money. That's the only reason they're in business. They're not in business to give you your Marc-Andre Fleury's. Like, they are, but they aren't at the same time. Yeah, they're there to put in the car. They're there to put in the Carey Prices, because Carey Price has a bigger fan base than Marc-Andre Fleury, for better or for worse. Like, they're not. People just forget that that's what they're here for. And the term cash grab. Everything in a capitalistic society is a cash grab. They're all every iPhone that comes out is a cash grab. Everything's a cash grab. Yeah. Like, come on, a movie is a cash grab. Yeah. A sporting event is a cash grab. A jersey is but people love to throw that term. They think they sound cool saying this is a cash grab. No, you sound like an idiot. You don't sound cool calling it a cash grab.
Yeah. And I have to really fight myself on going to bat for my favorite player, because there's a lot of people. He gets more flack than almost anybody that I see for everything he's done. So within the same vein with Upper Deck, it's hard for me to step back. But a lot of times I just block them and move on with my life. A couple people have made some comments here. I don't know who this is. I'm guessing this is somebody
Rage.
That has. Okay, from your show. What's up, Rage? Nice to see you. He says, my pet peeve is people with zero knowledge in it for the money, only and arguing with a person who has his master's degree in the hobby economics about comps. I mean, yeah, the whole comps argument, that's definitely one that I see it on all the time on some of those big Facebook groups. I want 10,000 for this Bedard, and everybody's laughing in reaction. I'm like, okay, well, maybe you try to help him with value. That's the approach that I always take. Like, hey, just want to let you know this Flurry you're asking 400 for, it usually sells for around 100. Good luck, stuff like that. Hockey Guy 2006 is my pet peeve in the hobby, has become very focused on the money and value is associated with cards versus the fun factor of collecting. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, my comment to that is that's the way of the world, though. That's the way it's gone there. But it's not the way for everybody. There are still people who just want to put their base set in their binder and don't care about the value. Yep. And, if that's the kind of collector that you want to be, then no one's going to stop you from being that. And I've known Hockey Guy through HI and that for years now. And so I'm not coming down on you, Chris, in saying these things, but at some point, you got to be realistic about the way of the world and understand that it's a hobby for some collectors, but it's a business for every entity that's out there. Every grading company, every manufacturer, every supply company, every LCS, every marketplace, they are only in business to make money. They need to feed their families, pay their salaries, pay their rents, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact that cards have become worth money is kind of what everybody wanted back before they were worth anything. And now they're worth something and we don't want them to be worth anything anymore. I understand the frustration and why it's a pet peeve, but my response is adapt. And I'm not saying that you're not adapting, but it's more like just accept it and move on with your life, because that's what it is. As soon as Beckett put out his first price guide, it became about money.
Well, I have to say,
this didn't just happen in the last 3 to 5 years. It's been about money since the 80s. Right.
Well, back when junk wax was junk, now we've got out of it. Again, like you're saying, everybody wants it to be cheap again. But I have to say, I came into collecting Flurry. You could say it at the wrong time. I absolutely did. I came in, he goes and wins the Vezina, and now his prices are, and I mentioned this in a little presentation I put together, far beyond Carey Price and far beyond Vasilevsky and any other goalie. Even the rookies, he's outpricing. And so I had to think if it was all about the money, I wouldn't collect him. If I was I'm having to spend all this money, I collect the cards I like, and there's a price to pay. That's just fine because I'm loving what I'm doing. It's not because, I don't know if this is a great investment. I know it is, which is great. Just like cards you buy, I know it's a very safe investment, but it's not about the money. It really isn't. But
it's not. It's only about the money because so many people want those same cards. So it's just supply and demand. It's really simple economics. The hobby is based on the simple laws of economics. So more people want them, and that demand might be driven by values, and people think they're going to go up and up in value. But I think what we've learned in the last 3 years is that you just have to be careful with what you put your money into in this thing, and be comfortable with the fact that it could all go to zero. And if it does, how are you going to feel about that? So don't bet the ranch on the hobby, on your cards, but it is very focused on money. These things are not free. You have to put out dollars to get a card back. The retail that flipper mentality about buying retail boxes at Target and selling it on eBay. Those are just opportunists taking advantage of a situation. I'm not saying I'm for it, but it's a natural evolution of where things are. So, I instead of complaining about it or posting my frustrations on Instagram every 5 minutes about it, instead adapt and figure out how you're going to fit into the environment. And if it's so bad that you can't, you're not handcuffed to the hobby. No one,
do something else.
Some people will miss you. Most people won't know you're gone. It's just it's a big hobby.
Well, you pose a great question. Would you be okay if your collection was worth $0 when you woke up tomorrow? There would be a part of me that would say, well, it's unfortunate, but what I put in, I love each and every card. The history of your vintage cards is never going away. The history of those, the toughness to get the grades, the fact that all my cards, some are tough, some are not, a Mark Andre Flair, that's not going to change. Those were still tough cards to pull from packs. There's very few. If there's a 101 or out of 5, that doesn't change. So I would love them equally. It would kind of be a bummer, but it's not going to change what I think about them.
I'd be devastated.
Yeah. Would you, if they were worth nothing?
Well, my collection's worth
a
lot of money right now. And
That's
if that were to go down to zero, I'd be devastated. I'm not gonna pretend I wouldn't be. I mean, but that's our collections are different, right? I
Yeah,
would be.
very.
I've put in significant money into the collection, and I've had significant growth over the years on cards I've had for periods of time. If it went down to zero, I'm not happy. But if my cards go down to zero, that really means that we're in a state of martial law and nothing's worth anything anymore.
Right. That would be terrible. Yeah.
So that's really what's going to have to happen for our collection to go down to
All
zero.
right. Well, let's. We've already talked about what you're going to do with your collections, or you did when you pass away, which is important to think about. But maybe let's not go down to martial law as far as that goes. But I love this comment. This is great. One day these Millie rookies will be worth tens of dollars.
See, and that's a smart comment there, because I don't. And when we talk about his prior comment about being the pet peeve all about the money, well, yeah, and it is. But when I responded to that, I wasn't thinking about the young guns coming out in Series 2 right now. That to me is not the money being spent on some rookies is going to be wasted. It's going to be lost, I should say, because you just look at the history of the hobby. There's going to be maybe one or two per year that are going to be worth anything down the road. Yep. All the values in the prospect and speculation, as soon as they don't turn out, those cards, he's saying tens of dollars, tens of cents is what. Look at go on ComC and see what I saw. I saw a post on Instagram. It said something like 30. I don't know the numbers, but 30 of the 50 young guns already are on, or it was 70 of the 100 young guns from last year you can get on ComC for under $1. 70 of 100 under $1. Nice. Maybe he said under 50 cents. So I think Hockey Guy is actually being a little generous there.
Yeah, he is. Well, and yeah, absolutely. That is a shame, but I will say for set collectors, that's got to be ComC has been a blessing in that regard. Just what I want to say: collect what you love, pick the right players. I mean, that's I 100% love the player that I'm collecting and support him no matter what, and that's the best part about it. So I'm never going to lose that sentimental value that I have for the cards. All right. Well, we have kind of got to the end here. I'm going to ask you one more question, and I always ask every guest this because it's so much fun. It is my interview series, so I get to ask this. Tell me something that you like about my favorite player, Marc-Andre Fleury.
I love Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, like, he's such a joy to watch. His person, he might be one of the most likable players in the game, like ever, like literally he's always smiling, seems to always be happy, seems to be a great teammate. I was devastated for the Penguins when they lost him. I thought, you're keeping Matt Murray, who had one run in the playoffs, over Marc-Andre. Are you crazy? And look what he did. Matt Murray's now been a journeyman, and Marc-Andre Fleury is still a hotly pursued goaltender. Like, what a horrible move that was by them to let him go for Matt Murray. Oh, yeah, horrible. I know. I feel sorry for Crosby and Malkin and Letang and those guys. But
not to mention Vegas getting rid of him too. That might just be as big of a travesty, if not worse. The guy deserves to have a statue in front of that arena for what he did. And now I
like everything. I like everything about Marc-Andre Fleury, Matt. Like, I think you picked a great player. He's just a wonderful guy.
We were robbed. We were robbed of that moment. 100%. I know why the refs didn't let him go, but I mean, that would have been. I'm sorry, Jordan Bennington. I know you got a little bit of the fire in your belly, but that would have not gone well for him. I already know this 100%. Insane. Yeah, Name and I have had some great because of Zach Whitecloud being on Vegas. I told him, man, I love watching Vegas with Fleury. That's just my team. And then he misplays a puck against the Canadians, and now he's traded that same year. So anyway, Jeremy, I want to say it's been a pleasure having you on here. I know that it's just always fun talking cards with you, and we got to hear a lot about you as a collector, which I know people don't get the chance to do that often. So hope you've had a good time on here talking about your collection mainly.
2.5 hours went by really fast, Matt. I told my wife, that's why I've had to text her. We're still going. Good night.
Yeah.
Fun discussion. And I apologize. Some of the questions, I just don't have good recall on things to remember a bunch
no
of that. But I thank you for having me and fun chatting with you and the chat. Thanks to the chat for coming out. And thanks Al and Name and Chris and Rage and who else has been through. That's all I see on the screen right now. But
awesome.
Carl, thanks for Carl's comments. Jeff McMahon was here. So
baseball card curmudgeon was here. We of course had Kelvin. He likes to hang out in the shadows, kind of like Batman, but he was here. Thank you everybody for coming on here. It was a pleasure to have you be episode 15. I was planning on stopping it at this point because the roundtable is going to be firing up again for 2023. We're going to be starting the first Wednesday of May. Really excited to get that going with Mitch and Reed and Trevor, who was just on here. Reed's been on here. Mitch has been on the interview series. It's kind of been a precursor to getting on to the roundtable. But we hope that you can join us one of these times. That would be great. You get your insight, and best of luck at the expo too. I am very much going to be living vicariously through you and everybody else that's there. So I can't wait to go.
Is roundtable the first one, the May 3rd, the first Wednesday you said?
It is correct. We're going to do it on May 3rd, and basically it'll be an episode that recaps the expo. We're going to introduce what we're going to be doing differently, and we're going to have our own Instagram page, putting content on there, doing our short clips like you've been doing. I think it'll be something that'll generate a lot of interest because it's unique. There's nobody doing a specific Instagram collectors show. And we've got some really cool ideas for episodes, things that are not going on. We've spent a lot of time looking at what everybody's doing, and we want to try to be unique. We want to take anything from anybody else. And so, but anyways, thanks for coming on here. I really admire what you do as an interviewer. I've learned a lot from you already. There's still more to learn, and I look forward to your next show. And obviously, congratulations on 3 years. That's pretty significant.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Matt. Fun time, and thanks, Chad, and especially the guys that came over from my channel. And we'll see you again. And come to my 3-year anniversary episode on this Saturday. There's, if nothing else, come for the giveaways. There's going to be giveaways galore and some really impressive ones. So. And
what time is that going to be on Saturday, Jeremy?
10 o'clock Eastern. I've got over 20 people coming. We got there's going to be 2 tag grading packages given away, a 1-year subscription to Basketball Card Fanatic. Wow. There's going to be a Connor McDavid autograph. There's going to be some boxes of cards, and then one that I'm not even going to tell you. You got to watch my Instagram for it.
Okay, great. Well, I will definitely be there. I'll mark my calendar. I'm excited to just come on and celebrate with you. And I look forward to seeing you at the National too. That's going to be a great moment for me. So,
all right, man. Great. Thanks again.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.